Chapter 893. Although he could not see, Fujitor could clearly feel the blade at his throat. If he twisted his body slightly, his throat would be slit and he would die. It's too early to say who will win. Fujitor's white eyes stared ahead and the blade in his hand danced again. Caw caw caw. The ground that Dustless was stepping on suddenly burst open. The majestic gravity suddenly covered Dustless's body as if it was going to crush his body into pieces. Even Dustless's body began to distort. Under the coercion of this gravity, Dustless bent down and the blade at Fujitor's neck fell to the ground. The Paramecia's gravity fruit. It really lives up to its name. It can be called a perfect and invincible ability that defies the natural order. Dustless's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Beads of sweat fell to the ground like raindrops. His whole body was wet and his face was as pale as paper. His whole body felt like it was carrying dozens of tons of mountains. Dustless could not even straighten his body, let alone walk. In just 2 or 3 moves, you guessed the ability of my fruit. You are indeed the strongest general in the world. Fujitor nodded undeniably. The density of gravity increased and the whole ground almost collapsed. However, as long as I want to, it will be difficult for you to even raise your head in front of me. As he spoke, the endless gravity shrouded the area within 30 meters and the ground collapsed. Can't raise my head? Is that so? With a teasing smile, Dustless suddenly stood up strangely. With a relaxed smile on his face, he teased Fujitor. Look, not only can I stand up, I can also jump. Bang! After saying that, Dustless jumped out of the collapsed pit. He was beaming with joy as if nothing had happened. How can you not be affected by my fruit's ability? Impossible. Fujitor's face changed drastically as he trembled. At the same time, the density of gravity increased again and shrouded Dustless's body. The ground around him cracked. Yen, on the other hand, was still expressionless. He stood out from the crowd with a calm expression and was particularly eye-catching. Am I dreaming? Akiji said with a strange expression. Even he was affected by the gravity, but Dustless was unaffected. Not only Akiji, but Sengoku and others were also stunned, looking at the center of gravity, Dustless, who could jump and jump, they all had a petrified expression. Ishao purposely made things difficult for us, but not for Lewis South? Sengoku and others speculated in their hearts. Dustless's cheerful appearance was not affected by gravity at all. On the contrary, their group of onlookers was greatly restrained. My ability is ineffective? Fujitor said in disbelief. He felt that it was ridiculous. Everyone had only 1 head and 2 hands. How could this guy ignore the existence of gravity? Idiot, it's not that I can ignore your ability, it's just that the difference between our dimensions is too great. Glancing at the sluggish Fujitor with pity, Dustless explained faintly, in fact, my existence has broken your previous cognition. It's normal for you to be surprised. The devil fruit has little effect on Dustless. Everything has its limits. The probability of defeating Dustless with his ability is negligible. The flash condensed between his legs, and Dustless's eyes flashed fiercely. If he doesn't teach this old man a lesson, he may dare to be like this in the future. Lightspeed kick. The golden shining leg swept across, and the strength contained in it was enough to destroy a marine warship. Armament hockey hardening. Seeing that there was no way to avoid it, Fujitor made a prompt decision, and his whole chest instantly turned dark, forming a steel-like defense. Boom! Fujitor's body set off a violent explosion, and immediately his whole body was thrown out. He retreated dozens of meters before he barely stopped. His whole body was slightly scorched, and he was extremely embarrassed. Gravity sword, tiger. The slash came again, and the ground that passed by collapsed, and it was all crushed by the gravity attached to the slash. In the invincible state of the autumn wind sweeping the fallen leaves, it swallowed Dustless. You're really boring, excessive conceit will only show your stupidity. Staring indifferently at the slash, Dustless's Rinnegan in his left eye twisted rapidly, and the 9 mysterious Tomo also trembled. Luan Tomb, Border Prison. With a cold and low shout, Wu Chen's shadow swept out and easily blocked the attack. With a stride, he shuttled in front of Fujitor and beat him mercilessly. In this world, Luan Tomb, border prison is invincible, and no one can defend or see him. Grumble, after not eating for most of the day, Dustless's stomach also grumbled in protest. He pointed to Fujitor, who was beaten by the shadow, and smiled at Sengoku. I hope this guy can keep his promise. Goodbye. After that, Dustless left everyone with his back and walked towards the residence of the Tenryubito, and the shadow that besieged Fujitor also dissipated. As for Fujitor himself, even with the defense of armament hockey, his nose was bruised and his face swollen. In fact, Dustless didn't want to teach Fujitor a lesson. After all, they will need to work together in the future, but it is impossible for this guy to be a fleet admiral. The deformed organization, Shichibukai, must exist now. Although Doflamingo, a disobedient dog, often acts against his master's will, he is still needed to build Pluton. After the Pluto King was completed, Doflamingo would lose its value, and it would be dead. Chapter 894. Looking at Dustless, a group of marine executives could only smile bitterly. As a powerful Tenryubito, Dustless did have the capital to be willful. Turning back to look at the miserable Fujitora, a group of marine executives could only sigh silently. It seems that there is no hope. Looking at the bruised Fujitora, Sengoku's face was full of helplessness. Fujitora's dream of fleet admiral has been broken, and the chances of it being reunited are so slim that it can be ignored. This matter ends here. Go back. Looking at Fujitora with a complicated expression, Sengoku sighed. He knew that it wasn't because Fujitora was too weak. Fujitor's superb swordsmanship and heaven-defying fruits could be said to be a flawless and perfect existence. His enemy was simply too savage. In a flash, more than 10 years have passed. Over the years, every enemy they have encountered, Dustless seems to have no right to deal with them. When Marine Headquarters dealt with Whitebeard, it was no exception. He was as terrible as a bottomless black hole. Every time he challenged his enemies, most of them had the same result as Fujitora in front of him. They were defeated by invincible strength, leaving an indelible nightmare in their hearts. Sengoku, who is the candidate for Fleet Admiral? Garp asked Sengoku. After a month, his hair was all white, and he was tired and confused. Just as I said. Find an island and let Kazan and Sakazuki duel, and the winner will be the king. After a quick exchange of glances, Sengoku finally made up his mind. This is also a helpless thing. He originally expected Fujitora to sit in the position of Fleet Admiral, but Dustless ruined it. Not only that, but Fujitor's head was also full of bumps. In a warm luxury villa. Wu Chen swallowed all the delicious food on the table. His secretary, Khalifa, stood beside him. His ghost worker, Perona, carefully massaged his shoulders. Hancock, who was wearing a maid uniform, was also full of respect. Sometimes when he saw this scene, Dustless felt like he was in the clouds, thinking that he was dreaming. Rumble rumble. On the table specially used to place Den Den Mushi, an ugly purple-black Den Den Mushi rang, and Dustless gave Hancock a look. The owner of this mysterious Den Den Mushi is actually Shiryu of the Rain, who is currently undercover with the Blackbeard pirates. I suggest we kill Blackbeard as soon as possible. Without waiting for Dustless to speak, Shiryu of the Rain urged, Blackbeard is really strange, he can devour other abilities, and there is no limit to the number. I already know that. Is there anything else? Wu Chen stretched himself, burped and said uninterestedly. He thought that what Shiryu of the Rain reported was top-secret news. He didn't expect it to be such a trivial matter. Although Blackbeard had climbed to the position of Yonko for emperors, in the end, it was still Whitebeard's legacy. Otherwise, if he were to fight one of the four emperors head-on, it would be hard to say who would be the stronger one. By the way, Blackbeard Titch has recently acquired the Tremor fruit. Shiryu of the Rain said after a pause. Hearing this, Dustless frowned, and doubts arose in his heart. At that time, the situation was critical, and Blackbeard took the opportunity to escape before he could seize Whitebeard's ability. Therefore, he should not have the tremor fruit. It's because Titch was lucky. Shilyu of the Rain's Tone had some rare jealousy and envy as he explained, you also know that after the death of the devil fruit's host, a new fruit will be born. Who would have thought that the new tremor fruit user happened to meet Blackbeard, who killed him and took his ability? Dustless suddenly realized. No wonder Shilyu of the Rain's Tone was full of jealousy. His luck was really against the heavens. However, it also verified the meaning of the old saying that there is cause and effect. What should be Blackbeard's will be his in the end. After chatting for a while, Dustless hung up the den mushy impatiently. After rubbing his temples, he lazily lay on the sofa, looking half asleep. Where are you guys going? Dustless, who had his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes and stared at the three women who quietly left. Perona, come over and massage my legs. Califa, come over and make me some grapes. As for Hancock, Dustless looked back and forth at Hancock, and the fire in his eyes was burning, like a beast that was about to devour a human. That blazing look was about to melt Hancock. After eating one's fill one's desire for sex, this was the truth that the ancient sages had ended. Ahem. You two are doing that kind of shameful thing, and you still want others to watch? Perona stomped her feet, and her pretty face was red. She pointed at Dustless with trembling fingers. Enough is enough, don't ruin the image in my heart. Califa nodded in agreement. I'm just giving you two some basic physiological knowledge, and I care about you. Dustless quibbled. Immediately, ignoring the three women's struggle, a high-density and irresistible gravitational force erupted from his palm. Wanxiang Heaven's Pull. The three women suddenly lost control of their bodies and fell on the sofa where Dustless was sitting. Chapter 895. When he woke up from his drowsiness, it was already late in the morning the next day. Wuchen put on his clothes alone and opened the curtains to go to the balcony to bask in the sun, but he found an unexpected scene. A group of marine executives stepped on the ship, away from the port, away from Mariehua, and left quietly. Could it be? Suddenly thinking of something, Dustless looked stiff, and immediately quickly tidied up his clothes. Master, you are? Hancock rubbed her sleepy eyelids, and immediately opened her eyes and asked doubtfully. Kazan and Sakazuki are probably going to duel. The place they chose should be Punk Hazard, which is not far from Dressrosa in Doflamingo. If they find Pluton's trace, Pluton, which took more than 10 years to build, can't fall into the hands of the Marine. Perhaps Sengoku and others don't know about Pluton, but the people who just boarded the ship, there are obviously some black-clothed people, who are officials of the world government. In other words, they are the confidants of Gorosei, 5 elder stars. When Dustless promised to take care of Doflamingo, it is estimated that Gorosei, 5 elder stars, guessed the conditions of the transaction, and Doflamingo only has Pluton's design. Maybe choosing Punk Hazard was just an accident. Young master, you're worrying too much. Hancock tilted her head and looked at Wu Chen with sparkling eyes. And even if the government really gets an ancient weapon like Pluto, it will be difficult to threaten the young master. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 years have passed, and seeing Dustless's methods, Hancock's nerves have long been numb, and the endless cards are enough to ensure that he can sit back and relax. I'm happy that you can trust me so much, but, close to Hancock, after looking at her for a moment, Dustless scratched Hancock's nose, and said with a strange tone, if I turn a deaf ear to it, the ancient weapon that I worked hard to make for more than 10 years. Can you understand the feeling of someone suddenly taking it out to deal with me? Hearing this, Hancock was stunned for a few seconds and nodded slightly. It was indeed difficult to accept. He had spent more than 10 years to create this peerless weapon, but its first target was not the enemy, but Dustless, the instigator. Just thinking about it made him feel stifled. This was too laughable. On the sea, there were huge ripples. A large battleship in front of them cut through the thorns. Many passing pirate groups had evil intentions towards this lone pirate group. When they planned to start, they used their binoculars to see the people on the marine battleship and immediately fled in fear. There were more than 2 current great generals. In the smoke-filled cabin, there were only 2 lonely figures. Kazan, what are your chances of winning against Sakazuki? Sengoku looked straight at the lazy man and asked with a cautious look. His eyes were exceptionally wise. Although Akiji was still as lazy as usual at this moment, the caution and fear in the depths of his eyes were visible to Sengoku. I don't know. After all, we are all generals. I can only say that I will do my best. Akiji shrugged and sighed. His slightly dispirited spirit carried the determination to move forward bravely. Looking up at the wooden planks of the cabin, Akiji knew that this was a gamble. If he lost, he would lose everything. From his point of view, he and Akainu would eventually withdraw from the marine. If he can defeat Akainu, I'm afraid that Sakazuki will choose the same path as him. No matter what the final solution is, Akainu or Akiji will leave the marine. This is all because of that bastard Royce Nan. He is a good Tenryubito, but he has to intervene in the marine's internal replacement of the fleet admiral. Sengoku's face changed, and he began to curse Dustless. If he didn't intervene, Fujitora would be able to stabilize the fleet admiral, and the marine would not have such an unsolvable situation. Creak. The closed door of the cabin was pushed open, and a young figure was reflected in Sengoku's dark pupils. Oh. There are so many ungrateful wolves in this world. I have worked hard for the marine for more than 10 years, and now someone is pointing at my back and scolding me. The desolate sigh was full of endless grievances, as if he had suffered a lot, which made people uncontrollably sympathize with him. However, these words were harsh and abnormal in Sengoku's ears. It was more uncomfortable than eating 10 pounds of flies. You have worked hard for the marine for more than 10 years? The corner of his mouth twitched fiercely, and his expression was gloomy. Sengoku almost spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were burning with a raging fire. He stared at Wu Chen with an unkind face and roared loudly, "If you don't make trouble for us Marines, I will burn incense to thank your lowest family ancestors. Instead of helping the marine, it's better to use them in disguise." In the war a few days ago, the reason why Dustless took action was because of the agreement with the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. In fact, this is also Dustless's disguise trap for the marine. The purpose is to weaken the power of the marines and pirates all over the world. The fuse of the war was Fire Fist Ace, and the person who captured him was Dustless. Chapter 896. It's no wonder that Sengoku is so resentful. Everything is because of Dustless, which led to the failure of the whole plan. Fujitora not only failed to become a fleet admiral, but he was beaten by Dustless. This is Fujitora's own trap, and he is too conceited. He wants to take my identity as a marine admiral. However, it is a fact that the blind man is not a fleet admiral. You don't want the marine to become the laughing stock of the whole world. Dustless shrugged. A blind old man became a marine fleet admiral. I'm afraid the whole world will laugh at the marine. Even if it's really a joke, it's better than this scene. With a snort, Sengoku retorted. He is full of bitterness now. Whether Akainu wins or Akiji wins in the end, it's a result of killing 1,000 enemies and losing 800 of his own. The contradiction between Akainu and Akiji is known to the world. If Akainu is in power, there is certainly no place for Akiji in the marine. Conversely, if Akiji becomes a fleet admiral, Akainu may not be able to tolerate Akiji. All in all, no matter who becomes a fleet admiral in the end, the strength of the marine will be greatly damaged. It's no wonder that Sengoku is so resentful of Dustless. It's all his fault. He doesn't want to be a heavenly dragon master, he has to run to the marine and make irresponsible remarks. Dustless turned a deaf ear to this. On the battleship, he silently searched for news about the group of black-clothed people. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye, 3 or 4 days slipped by. When arriving at Punk Hazard, they passed by Dressrosa and Doflamingo along the way. Dustless deliberately walked out, but he didn't see any trace of the group of black-clothed people. Strange. Why are these guys looking for Akiji? Several strange black shadows all rushed into the resting cabin where Akiji was. Their whereabouts were quite strange. They looked around, giving people the feeling that they were thieves. Driven by curiosity, Wu Chen stepped forward, but immediately retreated with a nervous reflex. Let's use that technique. With a faint smile, Dustless's left eye began to rotate rapidly, turning into a mysterious purple samsara Sharingan, and the 9 tomo folds were shining, extremely deep and beautiful. Tomb of Samsara, border prison. A shadow similar to Dustless appeared. It was so quiet that the outside world couldn't detect it at all. Not only was this technique invincible in terms of attack, it was also invincible in terms of intelligence gathering. Dustless was also helpless. Akiji left the Marine headquarters. He felt strange. Although he and Akainu's views were extremely contradictory, it was intriguing to join the Blackbeard pirates. Louis South, Saint. A broad arm suddenly patted Dustless's shoulder. When he turned around, he saw the commander-in-chief of the army, Sky. At this moment, he was beaming with joy and looked quite happy. What advice do you have? Frowning, Dustless's shadow also disappeared. His face was strange. This old guy must have something to do, and he didn't seem to worry about Akiji or Akainu winning. If Akiji loses, Sky's eyes were shining, and he said calmly, even if Akiji loses to Akainu, he will leave the Marine, but he is still a friend of the Marine, a partner of justice, and so is Akainu. That's just your wishful thinking. Dustless said. If this old guy knew that Akiji later joined the Blackbeard pirates, he wouldn't know if he would vomit blood. For whatever reason, Akiji joining the Blackbeard pirates is a fact. Punk hazard. Since Vegapunk failed to do a related experiment here a while ago, it has become a dead island. Even if there is a creature that can breathe, it is man-made. At this moment, there was a fierce battle. Boom boom boom, the violent roar continued, producing a powerful impact, accompanied by the spread of 2 diametrically opposite energy attributes. The place affected also showed 2 traces of burning and freezing, which was terrible to look at. The surrounding was either black with hot magma or frozen by the biting low temperature. 2 figures wearing justice cloaks were fighting with each other, and the battle situation was quite exaggerated. Looking closely, the figures of the battle were Akainu and Akiji. It's going to take 10 days and 10 nights, Dustless had no doubt about this. He really didn't know where the physical strength of these 2 came from. They can be called monsters, and their physical strength is endless. 10 days is not short, but it is not long. Who do you think will win? Sengoku leaned over to Dustless and asked suddenly. Hearing this, Dustless just glanced at him and asked indifferently, do you want to hear the truth or a lie? Sengoku was slightly stunned and immediately fell silent. In fact, it doesn't matter who is the Marine Fleet Admiral. Anyway, it's the same for me. Dustless gave an ambiguous answer. Akainu is the Fleet Admiral, or Akiji, it has no effect on Dustless. They will not blindly fight against Dustless. Only Fujitora dared to fight against Dustless, so he was destined to be the Fleet Admiral. Chapter 897. With the passage of time, the area affected was getting larger and larger. At first, it was only a small area, but as the wounds on their bodies gradually increased, they finally started to fight. Hey! That's it, 1 dead is 1 less. Dustless in the distance chuckled. If Akainu and Akiji can both die, it would be best. Anyway, his purpose is to weaken the strength of the Marine, including the pirates. If they can die together, the benefits are self-evident. Boom! The hot white waves swept the world, and the flowing air was extremely hot for a moment. Dustless was slightly stunned and looked at Akainu and Akiji who were fighting with each other with interest. Although these 2 are colleagues, the fierce war is definitely not less than life and death enemies. The crimson magma was monstrous. Magma and ice were 2 opposite attributes. Akainu, as a magma man, had the upper hand and was much better than Akiji. Big fire breath. The magma fist rushed out quickly, and the ice around it evaporated. Seeing this scene, Akiji was not afraid at all, and he didn't stop. He compressed the cold air in the air and turned it into a sharp ice spear. Ice, double-thorn spear. The flashing ice spear contained Akiji's unparalleled determination and directly pierced toward the incoming lava fist. Pucci. Although they are both admirals, Akainu's strength is obviously higher than Akiji's. Although the sharp ice spear broke the magma fist, it was still defeated and evaporated by the hot temperature. The giant magma fist was several meters long, and the ice spear only tore half of it. The remaining giant magma fist was still rushing toward Akiji. It seems that Sakazuki can be the fleet admiral for a reason. Obviously, he is slightly better. Dustless shook his head. It's just a simple move, but Akiji is obviously not Akainu's opponent. Although the magma and ice affect each other, Akainu obviously has the upper hand. Even so, Akiji will not easily admit defeat. Ice blade. The cold air in his hand was compressed again, and a sharp ice blade was instantly condensed. Under the refraction of the sun, Akiji's determined face was reflected. He is not that kind of person to give up easily. What a pity. Seeing this scene, Sengoku's face was complicated, and then he turned and left. Just like Dustless, Akiji was already at a disadvantage in this battle. Victory and defeat had been decided. Dustless glanced at Sengoku and immediately left with him. As he left, he glanced at the group of black-clothed men. These guys are the officials of the world government, the confidants of the Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Just wait and see. With a slight smile, Dustless also left in the battleship. Punk Hazard was left to fight with Akainu and Akiji, as well as the world government officials. Puchi. The ice blade in his hand sliced through the incoming lava fist as if he was cutting vegetables. Boom boom boom. Witnessing this scene, a large amount of magma erupted from Akainu's body, like a magma cave under the ground, bottomless, and magma constantly spewed out from his body. Akiji didn't show any weakness, and a piercing cold air burst out from his body. The cold air extended without limit, covering the entire sky of Punk Hazard as if to freeze the entire island. The momentum of the two men rose to the limit, and a long-lasting battle for the position of marshal was about to begin. Time flew by, and 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. The beautiful scenery of Punk Hazard had undergone drastic changes. The sky of the ordinary islands was fiery red, and the karmic fire of the Red Lotus burned everywhere. Half of the sky was dark red. On the other side of the island, Punk Hazard was covered in a thick layer of ice and snow. There were no signs of life on the snow-covered island. The battle between Akainu and Akiji was more like genocide, and all life on the island was evaporated. A slightly surprised voice suddenly came, and the dead world suddenly had a little more vitality. Looking closely, it was Dustless who left 10 days ago. The only difference was that there was a figure beside him at the moment, Caesar Kurang. Originally, Dustless wasn't interested in coming to Punk Hazard again, but because of the inside information from Caesar a day ago, he had to go to Punk Hazard. The reason was that Caesar was building Pluton on this island. That kind of big thing, Dressrosa, is not suitable to build it, and it is easy to be exposed, so I chose to build it in Punk Hazard, Caesar said helplessly. Dustless heard this and nodded gently, reluctantly agreeing with Caesar's statement. Where is Pluton? I hope those two guys didn't find it. Looking around, Dustless asked curiously. Akainu and Akiji were still fighting on this island, and if they found Pluton, it would be gone. Right under our feet, they wouldn't even dream of it. Caesar smiled mysteriously, and his mouth was full of pride. Wu Chen was stunned when he heard that. He instantly understood what Caesar meant. About 10 years ago, there was no island called Punk Hazard. Chapter 898. Dustless still clearly remembers that about 10 years ago, the island of Punk Hazard didn't exist, and when it appeared, it was when he ordered Caesar to build Pluton. At the beginning, in order to hide the existence of Pluton, I deliberately hid it. It was safe for a few years, but later, with the appearance of this island, it quickly attracted the attention of the Marine headquarters, and my old enemy, Vegapunk, was brought to this island to do experiments. Unfortunately, he didn't find the existence of Pluton, so I also cared about it, but this time, it was changed to the location of the Admiral's duel. Speaking of this, Caesar glanced at Dustless, and after seeing that he was still calm, he was relieved. He was really afraid that Dustless would abandon him. At that time, the first one to kill Caesar was Doflamingo. Therefore, he had to hold on tightly to this thick thigh. If he wanted to continue to ride on Doflamingo's head and order him around, he had to obediently be Wuchen's underling. Often, the most dangerous place is actually the safest place. Although it's a little risky, it's quite effective. Dustless nodded slightly, and immediately, regardless of Caesar's astonishment, he sank to the bottom of the sea. Caesar did the same, a magical force enveloped him and pulled him to the bottom of the sea. "I'm a devil fruit user, I can't swim." Before Caesar finished speaking, Dustless fell into the deep sea, and his whole body was instantly annihilated by the sea. After some bubbles appeared on the surface of the sea, he disappeared from the land together with Dustless. This, under the deep sea, Dustless's deep eyes transformed into the mysterious Tensigan, and nothing on the dark and cold bottom of the sea could escape his eyes. The underground of Punk Hazard was beyond the imagination of the world. The entire island was dragged by a giant, special metal. It stretched endlessly and was even larger than Punk Hazard. At first glance, there were countless thick muzzles aimed at the bottom of the sea, which was frightening. According to Caesar, Pluton is the most evil battleship in history. Whether it's on land or under the sea, it can attack enemies. No wonder Nether King is a battleship that was given the title of God. It really lives up to its name. Dustless nodded slightly. It was rumored that the Netherworld King could destroy an island with a single shot. With so many cannons attacking at the same time, destroying the world would be a piece of cake. The one who obtained the Lord of the Abyss would obtain the world. "I'm not dead?" Caesar was surprised to find that he and Dustless were both covered in a special air cover, which isolated them from the sea water. They were walking in the deep sea safely. Only 90% of the project is completed now. The rest will be completed in the next 1 or 2 years, Caesar promised after heaving a sigh of relief. That would be best. Soon after, the transparent barrier began to slowly float up, floating out of the sea and landing back on the ground. Dustless waved his hand and said, "Go back to Dressrosa for now." After that, Dustless left, heading towards the center of the battle between Akainu and Akiji. Caesar stared at Dustless's back and immediately silently boarded the ship that came to Punk Hazard before. The bow turned around and galloped in the direction of Dressrosa. Kazan and Sakazuki really went too far. Looking around, Dustless watched the islands that were still there 10 days ago vanish into thin air. Dustless sighed with emotion. This devastating blow almost destroyed all the creatures on Punk Hazard. They are still here. Why do these Gorasiai's lackeys care so much about the martial selection? Looking as far as the eye could see, the men in black were still there. 10 days ago, they were still there. He didn't expect that after 10 days, they were still in this place. The Gorasiai are not good people. They are instructed by the Gorasiai. There must be an unknown purpose. Dustless secretly guessed the purpose of this group of men in black. The martial selection had nothing to do with them, but this group of people waited for 10 days. Obviously, there was an unknown secret. Dustless, who was planning to leave, waited quietly. Boom! A black shadow smashed, and the iceberg behind him collapsed in a flash. A tall man with wounds was lying in it. His body was burned and he looked decadent. Staring at the approaching figure, he wanted to stand up and fight again, but he didn't have the heart to deal with it. His left calf had melted and disappeared. "It's over, Kazan." Akainu, who came over, said indifferently. Akiji was bruised, and he was not much better. His left ear was obviously incomplete, and frostbite could be seen everywhere. In this tragic battle for the martial selection, both of them were fatally injured. "Yes, I have reached my limit. Let's do it, Sakazuki." The dullness in his eyes was replaced by relief, and Akiji's tone showed that he had seen through life and death. Sometimes death was also a way to get rid of the shackles. Hearing this, Akainu pondered for a few seconds, and the blazing magma suddenly extinguished. His killing intent was also restrained. He glanced at Akiji, then turned and left under Akiji's surprised gaze. "I didn't expect Sakazuki to be so humane." Seeing this scene, Dustless couldn't help but be stunned. Akainu's ruthlessness was known to the world. He had always advocated cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots. It was absolutely a miracle that he was willing to let Akiji go. Chapter 899. It's no wonder that Dustless felt strange. Akainu's name is the most evil. The meaning of Akainu is actually a red fierce dog. This is also the name given to Akainu by the pirates. More than 80% of the pirates captured by Akainu were melted alive. Why don't you kill me? Staring at Akainu's back, Akiji tried to open his sleepy eyes. His eyes were blank, with some doubts. His relationship with Akainu has been opposing for many years. Akainu's footsteps suddenly stopped, turned his head, revealing half of his indifferent face. His voice was very hoarse, but there was an indescribable sense of reason. Because I have no reason to kill you. At least you are still a Marine Admiral. If I want to kill you, I will wait until you resign to me. If you become a pirate one day in the future, you don't need to say anything. I will kill you myself. When his voice fell, Akainu disappeared from the world of ice and fire. Needless to say, he must have left Punk Hazard. I didn't expect Sakazuki to be such a principled person. Dustless muttered to himself as he retracted his gaze. After all, Akainu, a cold-blooded butcher, has always given the impression that he has a heart of stone. For the so-called justice, he can easily use and kill anyone. Forget it, it's none of my business. Dustless's interest waned as he turned around to leave. Suddenly, from the corner of his eyes, he noticed that the world government officials who had been hovering around were moving forward instead of retreating. After Sakazuki boarded the ship and left Punk Hazard, they strangely approached Kazan, who was now exhausted and had no strength to even truss a chicken. Curious, Dustless also moved closer. He always felt that the thoughts and purposes of this group of black-clothed people were not simple. A few days ago, they secretly talked to Akiji. At that time, when Dustless was planning to explore the news, he was pulled away by the board General Kong, so he didn't know what their plan was. With this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, he can listen to the content of their conversation. Will Grave, border prison. The Rinnegan in his left eye twisted, and mysterious ripples appeared. Wu Chen's shadow was formed in an instant, and he strode toward Akiji and others. Even if it was right in front of them, they would not be able to see the existence of the shadow. Not only was it an invincible move, it was also an unparalleled existence in terms of spying. Mr. Kazan, what do you think of the conditions we discussed before? Do you want to stay in the Marine headquarters? Like your teacher Z, being a retired general is also good, he can also train the Marine recruits. The leader of the black-clothed men said. Hearing this, Kazan, who was lying on the ground, closed his eyes. After about 30 or 40 seconds, he shook his head with all his strength. Marine, there is no place for me there. Sorry, I will travel the world for the rest of my life. Akiji's tone was particularly comfortable. He felt very relaxed at this moment. The momentum of this group of black-clothed men is not right. Rather than asking about Akiji's future goal, it is better to say, Dustless could not help but sweat for the madness of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. He had vaguely understood what the black-clothed men were planning to do. In that case, the leader of the black-clothed men's calm eyes were replaced by a raging red light, which was replaced by a cold killing intent. Please go to hell, Mr. Admiral. Akiji first heard this and thought it was just a boring joke, and immediately felt the killing intent of several people, and suddenly his face changed greatly. Who gave you the courage to do this? Do you know what is the crime of assassinating a Marine Admiral? No longer lazy and calm, Akiji was angry at the moment. He had been in the sea all his life, and now these ants wanted to kill him. He exhausted his strength to move his body, but Akiji was powerless to find that he could not move at all. The endless battle with Akainu for 10 days and 10 nights had exhausted all his physical strength. Mr. Great General, now that you've exhausted all your strength, you're just a normal human. You're even worse than a human. At least they can still walk, but you can't. The black-clothed man sneered and ridiculed without restraint. Akiji heard this and his dark face could drip water. He forcibly suppressed the anger in his heart and asked in a deep voice, "Who made you do this?" Dustless's shadow also stretched his ears to listen. Although he had a guess in his heart, he still needed to confirm it. "Do you still need to ask this?" The black-clothed man's face showed contempt and disdain, and said indifferently, "There are only two kinds of people in this world who can order us. One is the celestial dragons, and the other is the Gorosei, 5 elder stars." In the distance, Dustless's eyes flashed. As he guessed, it was the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, who ordered to kill Akiji. As for the reason, Dustless also vaguely guessed it. But Kazan is really sad. He worked for the world government for most of his life, but in the end, this is the end. In this distorted world, it seems that it is normal for something to happen. "Bastard, tell me the reason why they ordered to kill me. I have not betrayed the Marine in my life." Even with Akiji's temperament, after hearing that the mastermind behind the scenes was the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, he couldn't help but be angry. Akiji had served the Marine for about 30 years, and he fell into such a situation. You have been given a choice before, but you still chose to leave the Marine. In fact, this is a disguised death. Of course, this is completely the meaning of the Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Chapter 900. Akiji rarely gets angry. But that doesn't mean that he is a wooden man who never gets angry. Often, the more good-tempered a person is, the more terrible he is when he gets angry. Even though Akiji's physical strength was severely overdrawn at the moment, the strong temperament of a generalissimo did not change. Being betrayed by the government he trusted the most, the blow to Akiji was self-evident. It was absolutely no less than being struck by lightning. The world government officials in front of him are also not ordinary. Although their foreheads are sweating and their bodies are slightly bent, in the end, they still resisted Akiji's oppression. The 5 elders said that if you are willing to continue to stay in the Marine, even if you retire, it's okay. But if you want to walk around the world freely, this is absolutely impossible. The leader of the black-clothed man said. Akiji has been in the Marine for nearly 30 years. During this period, he has performed countless tasks, and most of them involve some unknown secrets. If such a character is released, I am afraid that the 5 elders will be uneasy. Just like Z, Garp, and Sengoku, even if they really retire, they will stay in the Marine headquarters to teach recruits. It is impossible for Akiji to travel around the world unfettered. In his career as an admiral, Akiji has participated in countless secret tasks, and even involved in scandals of the world government. Now that Akiji is defeated, no one knows if he will reveal all the secrets of the past. Therefore, the 5 elders naturally can't tolerate him going far away. "Goodbye, Mr. Admiral." The black-clothed man's thumb was wrapped in armament haki, and he slowly walked towards Akiji, aiming at Akiji's heart. Even if he is an admiral, if his heart is pierced, he will definitely die. Akiji's face was extremely ugly, and his fists were sweating. As an admiral of the Marine, he is not afraid of death, but to die in such a remote place, and to be killed by such an ant, there is a burst of anger in his heart. And this way of death is definitely the most tragic death of an admiral in the history of the Marine. Akiji's heart is naturally unwilling. However, even if he struggled, it was useless. His physical strength was severely overdrawn, and it was difficult to move his arm, let alone fight back. Luo Gu sighed and immediately closed his eyes in despair. Boom! A silent explosion suddenly fell, and then the black-clothed man who wanted to kill Akiji flew out. Boom boom boom. The leader of the black-clothed man and the mountain in the distance were smashed together and turned into a pool of minced meat and mud. The leader of the black-clothed man, whose strength is comparable to a Marine vice-admiral, was instantly killed. Who on earth did this? The remaining black-clothed men were on guard as if they were facing a great enemy. Their insignificant observation haki also spread, trying to take in the wind and grass around them into their eyes. However, even if they scratched their heads, they didn't feel the existence of the creatures. Noticing the abnormality, Akiji's eyes were like torches. Recalling the War of the Best a while ago, a relieved smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He immediately lay down on the ground without any worries. The black-clothed man's eyes SSS. Kill Kazan first. The black-clothed man's, the mission's the ZSTT halves teeth SSS, he SSS'd, similarly, an incomparably powerful force suddenly attacked, instantly shattering the bodies of several people. They could not withstand a single blow and exploded into a bloody mist. The blood-colored plum blossoms covered the ground. The strength of these people was about the level of lieutenant generals. In the blink of an eye, they were killed by bloody violence. The most terrible thing was that there was no one around, as if it was done by a ghost who pitted Akiji. It's time for you to show yourself. Akiji's tone was filled with vicissitudes as he sighed. After a while, a ripple appeared in the void 10 feet in front of Akiji. Immediately, countless photons condensed, and dustless flashed from head to toe. Are you here to kill me as well? Akiji was quite calm and immediately looked at the smashed body. It seems that they are not, they are the Gorosei, 5 elder stars. What is your purpose, Louis South? I am not a Marine Admiral now. Akiji's tone was bitter. In just a few minutes, he fell from the altar and almost lost his life. His mixed feelings could not hide the bitterness in his heart. If you were a Marine Admiral, I wouldn't have come to you, and I wouldn't have saved you. In short, the enemy of my enemy is my ally. Dustless smiled mysteriously, and his light tone was full of endless magic, pulling Akiji's nerves. Enemy of my enemy? Akiji's eyes flashed with doubts, and he immediately stared at the black-clothed man who had turned into a bloody mist. Akiji's eyes flashed. You mean the Gorosei, 5 elder stars? As a celestial dragons, you should be their immediate superior. When did you become their enemy? Akiji breathed a sigh of relief, and his tone was full of joy. He was not afraid of death, but even if he died, the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, would pay a heavy price. After being slapped in the face, Akiji was not that kind of person. The grudge between me and the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, is not important. Anyway, you don't want to die like this, do you? I can give you the light of life. Chapter 901. One thought between heaven and hell. Now, Akiji was facing such a choice. His eyes quickly changed. He still had dreams that had not been realized for the time being, and he was unwilling to die. Therefore, compromise was inevitable. You know what to do. Secretly laughing in his heart, Dustless had long expected this. Akiji was not afraid of death, but the Gorosei's previous actions may have aroused the hatred in his heart, and he absolutely can't die so quietly. At the very least, he must retaliate against the Gorosei. I want to thank them. After a long silence, Akiji said inexplicably, if it wasn't for the ruthlessness of the Gorosei this time, I am afraid that I have been foolishly maintaining world peace for them. Hearing Akiji's words, Dustless smiled. In the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed in the human world. The situation of the entire world had also changed drastically. In the brightly lit villa of Mariehua. Well? Rubbing his sleepy eyelids, Wuchen crawled out from the bed and stretched himself. On the soft mattress, the 3 naked bodies were enough to make one's imagination run wild. The delicate white and tender face, the blush and intoxication that had not yet dissipated made people unable to help but think. Looking closely, it was Khalifa, Perona, and Hancock. 2 years had passed, and Dustless had finally managed to trick them to the point where they could sleep together. Reluctantly getting up from the bed, Dustless carefully put on his clothes. Sure enough, a woman's fragrance is a hero's grave, this is right. Wuchen lowered his head and smiled bitterly. He put on his clothes awkwardly. For so many years, it was Hancock who took care of his daily life. The meticulous life made him lazy. Now he was extremely unskilled in putting on his own clothes. Soft and boneless white hands came from behind, gently tidying up Dustless's clothes. Her movements were light and delicate, which was the opposite of Dustless. It's hard for you, Hancock. Dustless opened his arms and let Hancock dress him. He sighed, 2 years, time flies. It has been almost 2 years since the last time he rescued Akiji. During this period, countless major events have happened. The most noteworthy event is nothing more than the changes in the Marine headquarters. Sakazuki was promoted to Marine headquarters Fleet Admiral, Fujitora, and a strong man named Green Ox became a new Marine headquarters Admiral. During the War of the Best, Marlin had completely sunk into the sea, and the Marine headquarters went to the New World, showing the new Fleet Admiral Sakazuki's determination to fight the New World pirates. "Oh right, young master." As if remembering something, Hancock suddenly walked to the table, picked up the newspaper that was delivered yesterday, and immediately handed it to Dustless. Yesterday, all the members of the Straw Hat Gang appeared in the Sabaody archipelago and left after making a big scene. Taking Hancock's newspaper, the headline of the Straw Hat Gang sweeping the pacifists is clearly visible. Their progress is really fast. If I remember correctly, 2 years ago, they couldn't even fight back against the pacifists. Now, they can easily kill them. It's worthy of praise. Dustless slowly nodded and praised. The fastest progress is estimated to be the Straw Hat Monchi D. Luffy. After Rayleigh was killed in the War of the Best, he concentrated on training with Red Hair Shanks, and his strength naturally grew by leaps and bounds. What about the latest movement? Did they go to the Fishman Island? The corner of his mouth was slightly raised, revealing a playful arc. The Fishman Island is not what it used to be. It is completely controlled by Dustless's lover, Princess Otoheim, and the Fishman Island does not need the protection of various forces. It is enough to protect itself. Yes. Hancock was stunned and looked at Dustless with surprise, and immediately nodded. Their ship has been coded and left. Although their whereabouts are unknown, if they want to pass through the second half of the New World, they can only go to the Fishman Island. The second half of the New World, or across the Red Line, or this is the Fishman Island. It is self-evident which one is safer. Across the Red Line, the enemy is the world government, which is far more terrifying than the Marine government. Ta-ta-ta, in the corridor, the sound of messy footsteps suddenly came, and then a man in black with a restrained look floated into the eyes. "Lois Nan, Saint, your letter." The black-robed man respectfully handed the envelope to Wu Qin, and immediately bowed and asked to leave. Dustless frowned and looked at the envelope in his hand. His eyes flashed with surprise and curiosity. After coming to this world for more than 10 years, it is the first time that someone contacted him in such a subtle way. Poochie. A wisp of chakra overflowed from his fingertips and shattered the envelope, and the content was exposed to Dustless's eyes. That old woman Bigu Momo wants to occupy Sister Otoheim's Fishman Island? Hancock's beautiful big eyes were burning, and her raised tone was obviously murderous. That fat woman wants to eat dessert. It's really not easy, but she doesn't have to do it at all costs. Dustless shook his head. The sender was Otoheim of the Fishman Island, and the content was that Bigu Momo forcibly asked for the Fishman Island for the dessert of the Fishman Island. It's a bit childish. Chapter 902. Although Princess Otoheim and Dustless rarely met each other, the relationship between the two was inseparable. After more than 10 years, the naive and optimistic Princess Otoheim also saw through the nature of the world. The strong were respected. As a weak group, if they didn't want to be destroyed, they had to continue to become stronger, or they had to rely on others. There was no other way. Therefore, although Princess Otoheim and Dustless rarely met, as the world situation became more and more tense, and there were riots everywhere. Although the two hadn't seen each other for several years, Otoheim didn't alienate Dustless. Instead, she contacted Dustless more frequently. "Master, what do you plan to do? The strength of the Fishman Island is not what it used to be, but it's still not enough to fight against Yonko. It's a completely unequal war," Hancock said with a slightly pessimistic tone. If Dustless didn't intervene, sooner or later, the Fishman Island would be swallowed by Bigu Mam. "What should I do?" Dustless lay comfortably on the soft killing machine, his head on Hancock's knees, looked up at the exquisite ceiling, and immediately closed his eyes faintly. In the next few months, this world is about to enter the end. With his eyes closed, Wu Chen muttered to himself. His light voice revealed an irrefutable conviction. Even if one sometimes felt that it was impossible, he couldn't help but be deeply immersed in it, unable to extricate himself. You plan to destroy Big Imam. On the bed, Khalifa woke up and rubbed her hazy eyelids. She stared at Dustless and sighed. Are you going to kill her? Khalifa's casual words may sound like a funny joke to outsiders. The Yonko were not idiots. How could they be killed so easily? At first, Khalifa also thought it was ridiculous, but later, she lived under the same roof with Dustless, and her understanding of him gradually deepened. This man who hadn't aged for more than 10 years was actually the author of myths. Any incredible thing was easily done by him. Khalifa often felt like she was living in a mythical world. Kill her? It's a pity. After all, he's one of the 4 emperors. He's a good chess piece. He's very suitable to be one of the 6 realms. Turning his head, Dustless looked at Khalifa with a prodigal expression. Although I'm rich and have a lot of corpses, I can't be so prodigal. In the whole world, there aren't many who have reached the level of Yonko. Making 100 Beast Kaido one of the 6 paths is the way to save resources. You know how to cherish resources? How many pirates have you slaughtered? Rolling her eyes at Dustless, Perona said snappily. Shortly after, she suddenly felt that her body was cold, and her hand subconsciously stroked her delicate body. It was actually naked. Bastard. Her charming face immediately flushed red. She immediately grabbed the pillow next to her and threw it at Dustless. Due to her poor skill, it didn't hit Dustless. Weren't you willing to do it last night? Wu Chen's thin lips slightly raised, and he said with a playful tone. You dare to say that? Hearing that, Perona was so angry that smoke was coming out of her 7 orifices. She was so angry that she laughed. Her slender fingers trembled as she pointed at Dustless. Obviously, she was very angry. Using illusion on others is also called voluntary. Speaking of this, Perona was so angry that she almost vomited blood. She understood Dustless's despicable and shameless character even more. The probability of anyone or something that he valued escaping from Dustless's evil claws was 0. From the moment you became my subordinates, it means that you are all mine. How do I arrange my own things? Do I need to tell others? Dustless asked indifferently. Hearing that, Hancock and Khalifa looked at each other helplessly. Perona's pretty face flushed red when she heard that, and she bared her teeth at Wu Chen. She had crossed the line and tried to steal a chicken but ended up losing the rice used to lure it. She had done this kind of thing many times. She was caught alive by Dustless and it was another merciless destruction. By the way, a while ago, Law seemed to have become one of the members of Shichibukai. Dustless couldn't help but frown when he thought of Tragafar Law. He still saw the surgeon fruit's ageless surgery and remembered it in his heart. After so many years, Law should have the ability to do ageless surgery. He's still a Shichibukai. It's a bit troublesome to do something to him. Hancock said with a frown. What about Shichibukai? That kid thought he was safe when he got the identity of a Shichibukai. Don't dream about it. I didn't kill him before because I didn't have the ability to do ageless surgery. Now the time is ripe, it's time to use him to do ageless surgery. Dustless sneered again and again. The identity of a Shichibukai is useful to others and there will be scruples, but it doesn't work on him. This layer of black and white halo is ineffective for him. With the identity of a celestial dragon and enough strength, he can despise everything in the world. The 3 women looked at each other and chose to be silent. Dustless looked like this. It was obvious that he was determined to clean up Law, who let him do the ageless surgery. An ordinary man is innocent. If he wants to blame, he can only blame himself for being a surgeon fruit user. Chapter 903. The 3 women can only agree, as Dustless said, they can only complain that Law is the surgeon fruit, and this is the only fruit in the world that can do ageless surgery. Law's bag must be made of paste if he thinks he can stay out of it by becoming one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Dustless sneered contemptuously. The only thing that can restrain others in this world is to be stronger than others. Doflamingo is also eager for the ageless surgery. Khalifa reminded after taking a look at Dustless. He won't live for a few days anyway. Caesar informed me a few days ago that Pluto will come out soon. At that time, Doflamingo will have no value. An ambitious and worthless lackey will only end up being abandoned. Dustless said with a murderous look in his eyes. Khalifa and Hancock's jade-like chin count, and they very much agree with Dustless's approach. Any traitor, no matter what era or place, is extremely hateful. People like Doflamingo are ingrates. You've trapped yourself in a trap of your own making. Perona's delicate face curled into an arc as she mocked in a peculiar manner. Hearing this, Wu Chen glanced at her mockingly, and a teasing smile hung on the corners of his mouth. The palm of his hand was aimed at the area where Perona was, and an invisible gravitational force drifted out. Wanxiang Tian-ing. The body seems to ignore the existence of gravity, and the whole person is uncontrollably in the air. Immediately pulled by gravity, the delicate body is uncontrollably swept to the sofa where Dustless is located. My own trap? I have used Doflamingo for more than 10 years, how can it be regarded as my own trap, but you? Her eyes narrowed and turned into a thin slit, and the gaze that shot out was particularly terrible. At least in Perona's eyes, Dustless at this moment made her feel very terrible. Dustless pulled Perona into his arms by her waist and gently blew a breath of hot air on her earlobe. He teased, "You deliberately provoked me time and time again. You can avoid death, but you can't escape punishment. This is called spinning a cocoon around yourself." After saying that, Dustless did not care about Perona's struggle. He skillfully gestured her to swim away. He was not interested in this kind of weak resistance. Its effect was like a poison that seduced into one's bones. It would even arouse the hidden wildness in one's heart, inside the palace of Dressrosa. Pa. 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 Porcelain shards suddenly appeared on the exquisitely decorated floor, and the crisp sound of glass shattering could be heard. Based on the reflection of the person on the floor, this person was undoubtedly Doflamingo. "Young master, you don't have to worry. Louis South, Saint, didn't do anything to us. Aren't you worrying too much?" A large number of members of the Don Quixote family were trembling. Although the angry Doflamingo wouldn't go so far as to disown his family, it would definitely be a nightmare for anyone who didn't open their eyes to provoke him. Yes, you still have the identity of Shichibukai to protect you. Even if he is lawless, he can't hurt you against the wishes of the 5 elder stars. Pica, a senior cadre of the Don Quixote family, said. At this moment, each of them was covered in cold sweat, the pores on their body were uncontrollably enlarged, and the dense hairs on their skin were standing upside down. A huge oppression and hostility filled the interior of the palace, and there were countless magical weapons wandering behind them that could take their lives at any time. The identity of Shichibukai? Doflamingo, who was carrying the cadre, suddenly turned his head, revealing half of his blackened face. The blue veins on his forehead were bulging, and there were worms surging inside. It was extremely disgusting. If you had the strength of Louis South, would you be afraid of a mere Shichibukai? A hoarse rhetorical question made the cadre speechless, and they bowed their heads and didn't dare to look at Doflamingo's eyes. I'm afraid that when Pluto's construction period is completed, he can't wait to erase me. And that traitor Gecko Moria, he dared to betray me and cooperate with 100 Beast Kaido and that Z. He deserved to be killed, idiot. Thinking of Gecko Moria's death 2 years ago, Doflamingo gritted his teeth and said, his tone was full of joy. Originally, Gecko Moria suddenly agreed to cooperate with him, but the result was that he joined 100 Beast Kaido and others. He deserved to die. A group of Don Quixote family cadre exchanged glances and looked at the furious Doflamingo, and they all understood why he was so angry. Gecko Moria disliked Doflamingo, so he chose one of the Yonko, 100 Beast Kaido, and Admiral Z who defected from the Marine. Once I lose my final value, it will attract a bloody massacre. Kaido is dead, we can find other enemies of Royce South to cooperate. Red Hair Shanks, one of the Yonko, and Blackbeard Titch, one of the Yonko, 2 years ago. Even the new Admiral Fujitora has a deep grudge against Royce South. Large carnivores on the verge of desperation are extremely dangerous. Under the oppression of Dustless, Doflamingo can no longer care so much. In the past 2 years, Dustless has become more and more alienated from him, which is an extremely dangerous signal. If he doesn't prepare in advance, only bones will accompany the end. Chapter 904. Doflamingo rolled his eyes, and a ruthless decision flashed in the depths of his eyes. Remember this clearly, Royce South will definitely destroy us. Doflamingo's expression turned cold as he raised his voice in warning. Immediately, his cold eyes swept across the group of senior officers. It was not that Doflamingo did not trust these people, but they had to be vigilant in the face of disaster. Seeing that there were people who did not dare to look at his invisibility, Doflamingo's lips curled into a cruel and bloodthirsty smile, showing the demeanor of a tyrant. 5-colored thread. The family officers who were afraid of Doflamingo's gaze did not even have time to scream before a complete person was instantly cut into 8 pieces and split into 5 pieces. Seeing this scene, the faces of the family members changed drastically. Immediately, they raised their heads and puffed out their chests, looking at Doflamingo with respect and loyalty. Only then did the latter nod in satisfaction, and immediately turned around and left under the horrified gaze of the crowd. If I don't give you a shock, I might disband early. Looking around, Doflamingo sized up the trembling Don Quixote family officers. The corner of his mouth curled into a smug smile, and his figure gradually disappeared. Inside the palace of the Fishmen Island, on the exquisite throne that belonged to the king, Dustless comfortably leaned on his arm and took a nap, humming a pleasant tune from time to time. Below him was Princess Audrey, who was working hard with her cherry lips. About a few hours later, she stood up with her jaw dislocated. Her charming crystal eyes glared at Dustless with resentment, then she stood up and slowly moved her body. Immediately, she stood next to Dustless, not daring to put on airs as a princess. Her temper is much more restrained than before. His gaze fell on Princess Audrey's gentle face. Dustless sighed. About a dozen years ago, she had always had a cold face. She might treat others differently, but when facing Dustless, she always had an iceberg face. I also want to find some dignity, but, ugh, hearing this, Princess Audrey complained in her heart. She sighed and felt depressed. She used to put on airs in front of Dustless, but what greeted her was the most ruthless destruction. Where are they? His thumb rhythmically tapped on the exquisite throne. Dustless asked casually. His shining eyes shot out a cold light. Princess Audrey frowned and immediately replied, "An hour ago, they told me to wait here. They should be here soon." The person Princess Audrey was talking about was the subordinate of Bigumamu, Bachmus. You are worried enough. It's just a subordinate of the 4 emperors, and you are scared out of your wits. Glancing at Princess Audrey with boredom, Dustless couldn't help but complain. Just a subordinate of the 4 emperors? Chapter 905. Bachmus looked at Dustless on the throne. As for Princess Odoheim in his arms, she was ignored by Huali. In this world, only the strong will be respected. Otherwise, even the king of a country will be a plaything in the hands of others. Princess Odoheim is a plaything. She is more like a pet raised by Dustless. The world is so cruel, but at the same time it is very simple. As long as you are strong enough, you can do anything you want. What do you want me to tell my mother? Bachmus's tone was full of vigilance. Mother? Dustless's face was strange, and his whole body was cold. He looked at Bachmus's lion head. This guy is 40 or 50 years old, but he shamelessly called Bigum Mama mother. Not only him, but all the members of the Bigum Mama pirates seem to be the same. It is not difficult to see that this is Bigum Mama's request. There is something wrong with the heads of these pirates. Shaking his head, Dustless was relieved. If a pirate's head is normal, then they are not pirates. He said slowly, "Don't be nervous. If I am determined to kill you, you won't even last a second. Dustless gave him a relaxed look, indicating that he doesn't need to worry. He is just a pawn, there is no need to kill him, and Dustless is counting on him to pass on a message. Tell Bai Gu Mamu to let her live for a few more days. When I'm free these 2 days, I'll take her old life. Yawning, Dustless sat hazily on the couch. His lazy appearance was like a thorn, deeply piercing into Pakmas's heart, making him almost go berserk. Maybe it was not because of Dustless's identity as a Marine admiral, he already went berserk. You Marines want to kill my mother? Pakmas's killing intent was exposed, and his loosened fists were clenched again. His momentum also rose to the limit, and his fighting spirit broke out. You are so loyal to Bigu Mama, it's amazing. There were ripples in his eyes, and he looked at Pakmas with surprise, and immediately said, although loyalty is praiseworthy, but you are a fool. You often belong to the kind of people who die the fastest. Swish. A sharp whistling sound came from the front. Pakmas vanished into thin air, and only a black afterimage could be seen rushing over. Due to the extreme speed, one could even feel the wind blowing against them. It's just a lion, but it's quite fast. Patting Princess Odoheim's shoulder, Dustless narrowed his eyes and shot out a strange light. A mere wild beast, it didn't even have the most basic ability to distinguish between the strong and the weak. This wild beast was too unprofessional. Got it. The lightning-like afterimage cut through the thistles and thorns, as if entering the no-man's land. In an instant, it was close to Dustless's face, wrapped around the black fist of armament hockey and blasted out. Pakmas was overjoyed. Just as he thought that he would succeed, a strange energy fluctuation swept out like a tide. A powerful force instantly sent him flying. Shinra Tensei. Pakmas, whose expression changed drastically, could not control his body at all. In an instant, he was sent flying back dozens of meters. Ka ka ka. The exquisite wall in the palace trembled fiercely, and immediately a large hole was left. Pakmas' face was pale, and blood was visible to the naked eye from the corner of his mouth. Compared to his previous high morale, he was now gloomy and disheartened. After all, Pakmas was a pirate with a bounty of more than 300 million berries. Now that he was killed in seconds, the depression in his heart was obvious. Why do I feel that he has become a lot weaker all of a sudden? Princess Odoheim was speechless. A few hours ago, Pakmas was still rampant, but now he was particularly weak. Princess Odoheim even had the illusion that she could easily defeat him. Guru Guru, the unexpected sound of Den Den Mushi came. Dustless's face turned and fell on Pakmas Den Mushi. The Den Den Mushi with heavy makeup and purple lips was particularly conspicuous. The first person in Dustless's mind was Bigu's mom. The palm of his hand covered the Den Den Mushi, and an invisible force floated out. Wansho Tensei. The sound of the Den Den Mushi on the ground immediately fell into Dustless's eyes. Under the curious gaze of Princess Odoheim, Dustless picked up the Den Den Mushi. Pakmas, you, long time no see. Charlotte Linlin, nickname, Bigu's mom, on the other side of the Den Den Mushi. Bigu's mom was stunned when she heard this, and immediately roared angrily. Who are you? If you don't want to die, get out of here and give the Den Den Mushi to Pakmas. That bastard actually delayed the time to send me dessert. Even if he was now separated from Bigu's mom, Dustless clearly felt the killing intent of the Den Den Mushi. As the rumors say. Really an idiot who doesn't want to die for dessert. Dustless said bluntly to the Den Den Mushi. It doesn't matter what he said, but Bigu's mom on the other side of the Den Den Mushi was furious. Do you know who I am? I am one of the Yonko, Bigu. I know you are one of the Yonko, Bigu's mom, but I am not interested in your past. You just need to know that I have a unique interest. The cold air froze time and space, and the ice fragments floating in the air were visible to the naked eye. My biggest shortcoming is that I like to hunt the Yonko. Chapter 906. These words came too suddenly. Perhaps because it was too shocking, the acid that gushed out of Bigu Mamu's stinky mouth was able to keep the peace. Who the hell are you? After a while, Big Mom, who recovered, laughed angrily and said sarcastically, "Kill Yonko, for emperors? Do you think you are the Marine Admiral Louis South?" After her voice fell, Big Mom's mind began to wander. Somehow, she always felt that the indifferent voice on the other side of the den mushy was familiar and she seemed to have heard it before. After thinking for a while, there was no result. When she was about to ask, Dustless's teasing came. "Big Amamu, no matter what, we've met a few times. How could you forget me?" Dustless smacked his lips and said regretfully, then his thin lips opened slightly. "The Marine Admiral named Louis South you are talking about, is me." Big Mom was petrified on the spot when she heard this. At first, she thought it was a joke. After Dustless reminded her, she suddenly remembered the experience of a few years ago, and the hazy figure in her mind also cleared the clouds to see the sky. A young man's back was inserted into her thoughts, and she couldn't erase it. "What do you want?" Big Mom's tone was obviously not as arrogant as before, and her hoarse tone was full of fear. The War of the Best was only 2 years ago, and the world has not forgotten that amazing war. During this period, Dustless's performance was only a flash in the pan, but his invincible posture walked into everyone's heart. His life was rooted in the hearts of the world. Even if it was more than 2 years ago, the thin body that injured Whitebeard with overwhelming strength was still very clear. Now the world's strongest man fell on the head of Louis South. "It seems that you seem to remember," with a slight smile, Wu Chen said in a magnetic tone. "What do you want to do?" "This question is ridiculous. When the Marine meets a pirate, they will fight to the death. What do I want from you?" Big Mom's expression changed sharply, and her breathing was abnormally heavy. Her tone was thick with the smell of gunpowder and hysteria. "Even if I die, I will drag you Marines down with me." Baigu's mom was not an idiot. She naturally knew what Dustless meant. Looking at the den mushy that almost jumped up, Dustless instantly understood that Baigu's mom, who was thousands of miles away, was not in a good mood, and he knew that she would not wait for death. "There might be someone who can drag me down with them, but it's definitely not you." Regardless of Baigu's reply, Dustless simply closed the den mushy. Just as he was about to close his eyes and take a nap, he heard the sound of celebration. Fortunately, Mother knows about it. Otherwise, it might have caused a disaster. Bachmus, whose body was on the verge of collapsing, rejoiced. His words revealed that he had just survived a calamity, and a faint smile appeared on his rough face. "Are you happy?" Dustless glanced at him and asked casually. "Nonsense, knowing that you are looking for trouble, Mother will be able to defend in advance. Mother is not an idiot like Whitebeard. She will lay a trap in advance and wait for you to die." Bachmus raised his arms and shouted. He believed that the victory belonged to Baigu's mom. This kid, hearing this, Wu Chen felt a chill all over his body. Every time he opened his mouth, he would say "mommy" and "mommy" again and again. Listening to this made him shiver all over. The taste of pirates is really so heavy. In the face of absolute strength, conspiracy is just a boring self-comfort. The Baigu's mom pirates are about to be destroyed. This is the driving force of history. It is not a coincidence or a well-planned conspiracy. This is fate. After a moment of silence, Dustless retracted his gaze and gathered a high-density beam of destruction on his toes. "No matter what happens to the Baigu's mom pirates in the end, it has nothing to do with you. The reason why you can live until now is because I was waiting for you to inform me. Who would have thought that your words would be replaced by that den mushy? Sorry, you still have to die." Under the indifferent gaze, the light on his toes also came out. Boom boom boom. In the closed palace, Dustless forced a big hole of 20 or 30 meters, and Dustless and Princess Odoheim on the throne were also exposed to the air. Boom. A smoking black body fell heavily on the ground, the heart stopped beating, the abdomen was scorched, and the internal organs were faintly visible. Seeing this scene, Dustless stretched and yawned tiredly. "I'm going to sleep for a while." Regardless of Princess Odoheim's reaction, Dustless closed his eyes and went into a trance. Princess Odoheim didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She wanted to break away from this warm embrace. An indescribable drowsiness also came to her heart, and she also fell into a dream. Fishman Island, 10 days passed in a flash. Princess Odoheim naively thought that if she refused the conditions of Bigu's mom, the people of Fishman Island would fall into a happy life. She didn't expect to face an unimaginable nightmare. Even the islanders, who were gentle in the past, glared at her with a fierce expression, and they couldn't wait to tear her to pieces. Even inside the palace, the cursing outside could be heard, and the tone was mostly the same, as if it had been discussed in advance, advocating the public execution of the king. Chapter 907. On top of the tall building, Princess Audrey looked down at the crowd with her beautiful eyes. Her face was filled with disbelief. She had worked hard for the Fishmen Island for more than 10 years. Now, this group of people did not distinguish between right and wrong. Everyone said that they wanted to execute her with hatred. Why is it like this? The blood in her body was instantly drained. Princess Audrey muttered to herself in disbelief. Her weak body swayed left and right. She looked like she would fall at any time. It's the same with humans and fishmen. You don't have to worry about it. Dustless went forward to support Princess Audrey and explained softly, "You refuse to let the Fishmen Island become Bigu Mam's territory. These people will naturally blame you. This is understandable. After all, Bigu Mam is one of the 4 emperors, now. She can destroy the Fishmen Island at any time. However, you refused Bigu Mam's condition. These fishmen will naturally hate you for leading them to their doom." Hearing that, Princess Audrey was at a loss. She had dedicated her life to the Fishmen Island. She did not expect that these loyal people would fight to execute her. She felt that the world was changing too fast. "I'm doing this for their own good. The whole world knows what kind of person Bigu Mam is. Even if the Fishmen Island really goes into Bigu Mam's arms, it will be destroyed sooner or later," Princess Audrey said sadly. Her delicate rosy face lost its luster. She looked down at the hysterical fishmen with a complicated expression. She suddenly felt that everything she did in the past was just deceiving herself. She suddenly felt like a clown that was abandoned by the whole world and treated coldly. Don't worry about it. This is human nature. When you are valuable and useful, they will lift you up high and put you on the altar. They will respect you like a god. But if you do something wrong one day and bring about a disaster, it will be like this scene. Don't talk about being in the same boat. It's good enough that they know their place." Gusts of breeze blurted out, and Dustless rationally explained, trying to pull Princess Audrey out of the pain. "These people are really heartless. It seems like they want to kill you and give your head to Bigu Mam to extinguish her anger." When a disaster came, everyone flew away. This was the nature of living things. Boom! Boom! An ear-piercing explosion attracted Dustless's attention. He looked carefully. It turned out that, "Are you kidding me? These bastards are too shameless to actually betray others." The corners of Dustless's mouth twitched, and he let loose a torrent of abuse. Below the gate tower, the army that originally belonged to the royal family betrayed them shamelessly. Not only that, but they also directly let the berserk fishmen into the palace. They aggressively rushed toward the location of Dustless and Odoheim. "Run! These rioters are trying to kill us." Princess Odoheim pulled on Dustless's arm and was about to retreat, but her weak strength was useless. Dustless stood there like a statue and did not react. "Escape? Why should we run? You didn't do anything wrong. They are the ignorant ones. Do they think that they can rest easy if they pledge allegiance to Bigu Mam? In your dreams." Dustless sneered. Bigu Mamu wanted to take over Fishmen Island for himself, for nothing more than the deserts on the island. However, what Bigu Mamu wanted was beyond the limit of Fishmen Island. If they couldn't take out that much, the island would be destroyed. Countless islands were destroyed by Bigu Mamu because of the delay in the dessert delivery cycle. Actually joining or refusing the Bai Gu Ma Mu pirates is a matter of time, but this group of people pushed all the faults on Princess Otoheim's head and reversed black and white. Wait slowly, there is no need to run away, not to mention Shirahoshi. It is not you who is wrong, it is Fishman Island. Glancing faintly at the panicked Princess Otoheim, Dustless sat calmly on the throne and drank, waiting for the mob. His main purpose of visiting Fishman Island this time was Shirahoshi. Ta-ta-ta, in the dark corridor ahead, there was a violent vibration, and the entire palace trembled. Princess Otoheim walked to Dustless's side. She looked down at this group of compatriots in a high position. At the moment, she felt particularly strange. Everyone seemed to be possessed and their eyes were blood red. Go back, this time I can let bygones be bygones. As long as everyone works together, we will be able to get through it. Princess Otoheim's voice hasn't fallen yet. The hatred and abuse of a group of fishmen, as well as all kinds of filthy words, fell into Princess Otoheim's ears and broke her last defense. Work together? Are you kidding me? It is you who is selfish and will bring disaster to Fishman Island. Burn this woman who scourges Fishman Island and give her to Bai Gu Ma Mu. She will forgive us. Take her head and give it to Bai Gu Ma Mu in exchange for our peace. As the princess, you should feel happy. Dying for the entire Fishman Island is your obligation as the princess. Dustless looked at everything in front of him expressionlessly. He was silent, but his eyes were getting colder and colder. Everyone be quiet. A powerful voice sounded, and a fishman with fangs came out of the crowd. His words were particularly useful. The noisy crowd suddenly became quiet, and many people cast a fanatical look at him. The world is fickle. I didn't expect this kid to be so lucky. Dustless was surprised to find that he actually knew this ugly fishman in front of him. Moreover, he was the ultimate villain of Fishman Island, Hody Jones. Looking around, he faintly had an answer in his heart. Perhaps everything in front of him was Hody Jones's doing. Chapter 908. No wonder the whole Fishman Island is in an uproar. It turned out to be this kid's doing. Her eyes fell on Hody Jones. He turned out to be an army of the palace. When Dustless killed Poke Muss a few days ago, he was one of the officers and soldiers who cleaned up the body. Now this group of mobs is headed by Hody Jones. Obviously, he is the one behind the scenes. You traitor, how dare you mislead people? Staring at Hody Jones, Princess Otoheim pondered for a moment and immediately understood the mystery. She looked at the triumphant Hody Jones with fire in her eyes. She, who has always been quiet, released a murderous aura. Sure enough, women can't be provoked. Dustless, who felt the murderous aura, also looked at Princess Otoheim in surprise. Even when he ruthlessly trampled on Princess Otoheim and turned her into a slave, he didn't see her release a murderous aura. Traitor? As if he heard the funniest joke in the world, Hody Jones opened his mouth and laughed. You are the one who betrayed the Fishman Island. You joined forces with humans, and your opponent is a marine admiral. This is a great shame. In the end, Hody Jones' eyes were swallowed by countless blood vessels. The reason why he hated the Marines was because of Dustless. After all, Dustless destroyed his most respected tiger. Since you know that I am a Marine Admiral, you still have the courage to stand here. I don't know if you are confident in your own strength, or do you think that I dare not kill you? Wu Chen asked with interest. At the same time, he released his murderous aura. Even if it was a little bit, it was like falling into an ice cellar for these people. Their scalps were numb, and most of them fainted with white foam at the mouth. Only Hody Jones and his new fishman pirates were holding on. It's useless to hate me. Even if you kill us, there are hundreds of thousands of people in the Fishman Island. Hody Jones hysterically said, and his words were wild. His purpose was to hope that the fishmen and humans would continue to kill each other. Now that he has done it, even if he completely falls, he will not regret it. Hate you? No, I want to thank you. Dustless shook his head and pointed to Princess Otoheim beside him and smiled. If you didn't do it so coldly and let the residents of the Fishman Island show their ruthless side, she would still be in the dark. Looking up, Princess Audrey's face was cold and stern. Her former kindness were all restrained. She was like an iceberg, and her entire body was drifting with a desolate coldness that was isolated from the world. This was the meaning of rebirth out of the cocoon. If it wasn't for Hody Jones, the only way for Wu Chen to take Princess Otoheim and Shirahoshi away was to rob them. Ah! Who are you? Get away, don't get close to me. Terrified screams resounded throughout the entire Fishman Island, filled with endless panic. Dustless raised his head and looked into the distance. Moreover, he kept feeling that this tender and timid voice was somewhat familiar. Shirahoshi? Princess Aji was shocked when she heard this. She immediately rushed in the direction of the voice. Sinner of the Fishman Island, stop. Seeing Princess Otoheim flee, Hody Jones's eyes overflowed with savagery. His whole body was covered with a faint blood mist, no different from a ghost from hell. Water droplets dripped from his hand. Fishman Island Karate, water strike. The ball of water, which was powerful enough to pierce through steel, whizzed out. Just as it was about to pierce through Princess Otoheim's abdomen. At this critical moment, a black afterimage rushed over. It stared at the ball of water and gently squeezed it. Bang! The powerful water ball that was about to crush Consort Aji was easily caught by Wu Chen. Soon after, it was easily crushed like a balloon. What's going on? Dustless, who planned to teach Hody Jones a lesson, was puzzled. The palace, which was originally sunny, suddenly became gloomy. Dustless felt that some creature was watching him. Dustless leisurely turned his head, and the giant creature that appeared in his eyes made his breath stagnate. Run, the Sea King is coming. When did this level of Sea King appear on the Fishman Island? The length alone is more than 7 kilometers. Bastard, it seems that there is more than one Sea King. It must be Princess Otoheim's actions that angered the gods of the Fishman Island. Startled and shrill roars resounded incessantly. Immediately after, the murlocs surrounding the palace suddenly dispersed, fleeing in panic for fear that they would not be able to escape in time. Dustless didn't have time to take care of this group of fishmen, and his observation hockey spread out. How is it possible? Is it possible that a lot of people died there? After a while, Dustless opened his eyes and muttered to himself in a low voice. He was shocked to find that at least hundreds of Sea Kings with a length of more than 7 or 8 kilometers were wandering around the Fishman Island. And this number is skyrocketing. Attracting the Sea Kings is nothing more than blood, which can lead them to forage for food, but this exaggerated number is obviously wrong, and Dustless didn't kill anyone, he just stunned a lot of mobs who took the opportunity to make trouble with his murderous aura. No. Dustless's mind flashed, and a delicate mermaid figure suddenly appeared in his mind. If I'm not wrong, it should be Shirahoshi who awakened the ability of Sea King. The scream just now may be the inadvertent awakening of Sea King's ability and summoning a large group of Sea Kings. Chapter 909. Dustless was relieved. Under the detection of his Kenbun-shoku, observation, the entire island was safe and sound, and there was no large-scale bloodshed, which confirmed his conjecture. Shirahoshi awakened the ability of Sea King. Huh? The dark shadow gradually approached. Dustless was slightly stunned and raised his head. A creature of tens of thousands of meters was coming, and its mouth was wide open, trying to annihilate the entire palace. Still can't control it, frowning, Dustless pondered. If Sea King is completely awakened and can control the Sea King, Shirahoshi won't order the Sea King to attack the palace. Ha ha ha. It's a blessing to die with you. Even a Marine Admiral will be buried with us. God really takes pity on us. Hody Jones laughed loudly, and his tone was full of joy. Dustless turned his head and glanced at Hody Jones, and his eyes flashed with contempt, and he immediately stared at the super-large Sea King in front of him. Not to mention that it was only tens of thousands of meters long, even if it was dozens of times larger, it would be difficult to hurt him. You are wrong. It's not me who will be buried with you. This Sea King is here to attack you. The dark pupils turned, and the sharpness of the three-tomo Sharingan covered the eyes of the Sea King. With just a casual glance, the trajectory of the giant Sea King's movement changed dramatically. Boss. It seems that something is wrong. This Sea King seems to be coming for us. Hody Jones's brothers exclaimed, and the fear on their faces was clear. This Sea King, which was tens of thousands of meters long, attacked the new Fishman pirates, and its mouth was big enough to swallow the whole world. The Sea King's pupils changed dramatically, and it was the same as Dustless's three-tomo Sharingan. Hody Jones was gloomy, and his strong arm reached into his crotch and took out a lot of pills. His eyes flashed with madness, and he immediately drank it without hesitation. Boom boom boom, about a few seconds later, a majestic momentum erupted from Hody Jones's body, and the invisible waves turned into a substantial impact, and the surrounding walls instantly cracked. The walls that couldn't withstand this force collapsed and were annihilated. Although I don't know what happened. But now, you can go to hell. Looking at the giant Sea King that was about to devour him, Hody Jones, whose body had mutated, roared. At this moment, his white hair was fluttering in the wind, and his entire body was filled with explosive power. A fist-sized water ball fell from his thumb. Fishman Karate, Water Strike. The seemingly weak water ball instantly became extremely ferocious. It shot out like a cannonball and easily penetrated the Sea King's body. Useless thing, looking at the falling Sea King, Dustless was speechless. It was 10,000 meters tall, but it couldn't even withstand a single blow and was easily killed by Hody Jones. I am the same as you now. Hody Jones was overjoyed when he noticed the powerful energy surging through his body. His bright eyes stared at the expressionless Dustless as if he was looking at his prey. TSK, with a sinister smile, Hody Jones turned into an afterimage and rushed out, crossing layers of space. In just a few seconds, he had crossed nearly 100 meters. Bang bang bang. Due to his terrifying strength, the ground would explode with every step he took, leaving behind huge footprints of Hody Jones. Dustless relaxed his eyebrows and frowned together. Suddenly, he noticed that his right arm was grabbed by a rough hand. The uneven feeling made Dustless surprised. That miraculous drug is not bad. It actually allowed you to escape from the level of an ant. This is really worthy of celebration. Moving his gaze, Dustless stared at the arrogant Hody Jones. At this moment, he had landed beside Dustless. The rough hand that grabbed his right arm was Hody Jones. However, it's just a flash in the pan. Soon, you will become a candle in the wind. At that time, I won't even need to do anything and you will enter the end. Glancing at Hody Jones, Dustless said calmly. This kind of drug in exchange for power, the user had to pay with their life. TSK. So what? At least I can kill you before that happens. Hody Jones said confidently. Immediately, his eyes flashed with a raging red light and he laughed cruelly. The difference between the current me and the previous me is huge. As long as I want to, I can easily tear your arm apart. Looking at the thin and small arm that was even thinner than a woman's arm, contempt flashed in his eyes. It was the complete opposite of his muscular and strong arm. If you can. You can try. Dustless stretched lazily and said lightly. You're courting death. Hody Jones was so angry that he laughed. Dustless's lazy expression, as if he had just woken up, stimulated his nerves. Hody Jones immediately exerted his strength to the limit. Break for me, this is? How is this possible? Hody Jones's eyes widened and his face was full of shock. He thought that Dustless's arm would be torn apart in an instant. However, this thin and weak arm had strangely changed and was swallowed by the black color. The skin was as hard as a meteorite and there was no way to break it. You are indeed stronger than before, but the nature of an ant hasn't changed. It's useless to say more. Go to hell. Chapter 9-10. Hody Jones was shocked. Looking at the tender arm in his hand, he exhausted all his strength but could not move it at all. The arm that was obviously weak and fragile was surprisingly hard. With his strength, it was as difficult as ascending to the sky to leave a mark. So dazzling. The dazzling golden luster came to his face, and the shining light almost blinded his eyes. He instinctively closed his eyes and covered his eyes with his big hands. Through the thin gap between his fingers, he peeped at Dustless's every move. After a long while, until the light disappeared, he dared to open his eyes. Poochie. The sound of an object being penetrated sounded, and it was particularly simple and straightforward. Hody Jones was slightly stunned, and then he felt the burning pain, like a tide sweeping through all parts of his body. His vitality was also rapidly draining, and his murderous eyes were dim for a moment. Subconsciously, he looked at the stinging pain in his chest. Damn it. When did it happen? I didn't realize it. I took so many medicines, but I can't even keep up with his attack speed. Hody Jones screamed, his voice full of unwillingness. He instinctively reached for the other drugs in his crotch, only to find that there was nothing there. The fierce medicine just now had been eaten by him at once. There was no more for him to squander. It's your own strength that is too weak. Even if you took the medicine to enhance your strength, it's still too far away. It's far from enough to reach the level of being on par with me. A cold and uninterested voice startled Hody Jones, and he immediately roared in anger. His face was distorted with hatred and his eyes were filled with hatred. Bastard, don't look like it has nothing to do with you. If it weren't for you, Boss Tiger wouldn't have died. It's all your fault. Hody Jones spat everywhere. The person he respected most in his life was Tiger, and it was Dustless's fault that indirectly led to his death. Although Dustless finally gave him a way out and listened to Princess Audrey's advice to let him go, the Grim Reaper still waved his sickle at Tiger and mercilessly harvested his life. Dustless looked down at Hody Jones indifferently like a mad dog, without any emotion in his eyes. You're right, it's indeed because of me, but, so what? Looking straight at Hody Jones, Dustless said faintly, more than 10 years ago, he sneaked into Mariehua alone and rescued all the slaves. This fearless surge is indeed worthy of praise, but the world is so cruel. Since he dared to attack Mariehua, he must pay the price. Now, you are no exception. The price for challenging me is your life. They chose their own path, and no one forced them. At the beginning, Tiger was not killed because Princess Odoheim begged to be killed. Who would have thought that the kid would not only not be grateful, but also become a pirate? Once again, a large amount of photons gathered at the tip of his feet, and the dazzling light was even more intense than before. The biting cold luster made people not dare to look directly at it, and the shadow of death remained in their minds, unable to be erased. Fishman Karate. Lightspeed kick. The beam shot out at the speed of light, and Hody Jones, whose stomach had been cut open, could not resist at all. He could only watch as the beam attacked him. Boom boom boom, suddenly, a huge circular fireball appeared in the void, and a destructive wave of air spread out, disintegrating the surrounding walls one after another. Hody Jones, on the other hand, lost his consciousness, his whole body was burnt, his heart stopped beating completely, and his whole body was filled with the smell of burnt meat. Run, Boss Hody was killed by the Marine Admiral. You idiots, get away from me. The new Fishman pirates retreat first, and the others stay where they are. Hody Jones, the leader, was dead, and the new Fishman pirates fled in panic. Some of them were forced by Hody Jones to make up the numbers. Now that the boss has died, everyone naturally followed suit. Before you go, you have to leave something behind, the devil's whisper resounded behind him, and the Murlocs turned around mechanically. The fear in their eyes was clearly visible. Bastard, you are an admiral of the Navy, you should capture us, not kill us. His hands were brimming with high-density blazing flashes, and Dustless was already floating in midair. Should I put you in prison? Sorry, I don't have that much time. So, you'd better die here. Dustless sneered and said ruthlessly, and at the same time, his hands were full of flashes, whistling out, and thousands of rays of light swallowed everyone in an instant. Yasakani no Magatama. The people gathered here were either the remnants of the new Fishman pirates or the mobs of the Fishman Island. Dustless was naturally merciless. He was not as kind as Princess Otoheim. Poochie. Poochie. The murlocs that had scattered in all directions fell to the ground with painful expressions. Their bodies were covered with dense holes. The scene in the palace was too horrible to look at. All the living things that could move were killed by Dustless. Looking around, blood flowed like a river, and bodies piled up like a mountain. Chapter 9-11. Turning his head and staring at the oppressive palace behind him, Dustless finally chose to burn it with fire. In this disgusting place, as long as he breathed a breath of air, it was extremely uncomfortable. The smell of the traitor's body made him uncontrollably nauseous. Boom! The monstrous fire spread rapidly, and in a short period of time, it spread throughout the entire broken palace. Almost all the people inside were obliterated by Dustless. Maybe after tomorrow, this place will become a pile of yellow earth. A tooth for a tooth, this is Dustless's principle of life. Inside the dark castle, it was a mess. Broken porcelain was everywhere, the scene was full of debris, and of course, there were mountains of treasures. In addition, outside the castle, there were dozens of sea kings that reached tens of thousands of meters, and they used their huge bodies to protect the castle. Shirahoshi, this is Princess Otoheim, who rushed over, looked at the ground and was dumbfounded for a while. The usually quiet castle was like a thief. Mother. Hearing this pleasant and familiar voice, a throbbing sound came from the dark corner of the wall. Sparkling and translucent teardrops fell from midair, and then a huge black shadow swept over. With lightning speed, Princess Otoheim, who was unaware of it, was lifted up. The line of sight was enlarged, and the outline of the black shadow was clearly visible. It was a huge mermaid, with a sweet appearance, white skin, and crying with joy. What happened to Shirahoshi? Princess Otoheim swayed her body and swept to Shirahoshi's face, gently wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, and immediately looked through the window at the large sea kings wandering around, and the corners of her eyes flashed. Just now, a pirate called Karib suddenly invaded, and he wanted to take me away by force. The tears in Shirahoshi's eyes fell uncontrollably, and her body curled up. For that disgusting pirate, she had a kind of fear in her soul. Princess Otoheim looked stiff and immediately asked anxiously, where did the pirate named Karib go? Princess Otoheim's tone was cold. She had been rolling in the sea for many years, and she knew how serious the consequences of exposing Shirahoshi's secret as an ancient weapon would be. At that time, whether Dustless could save the mother and daughter was a problem. Let nature take its course. He has already run away. A magnetic voice that was calm but filled with concern resounded, attracting the gazes of Bai Xing and Princess Aji. Princess Aji frowned, her crystalline eyes filled with doubt. How did you get in here? Don't tell me you can communicate with them. Pointing at the large sea kings outside the castle, Princess Otoheim was surprised to find that their eyes had turned scarlet. I had no choice. They refused to let me in, so I had to resort to extreme measures. Dustless shrugged and smiled helplessly. That's not important. Hearing this, Princess Otoheim shook her head and immediately said worriedly, Shirahoshi's ability has awakened, and the pirate named Karib saw it with his own eyes. The gold all over the place was probably the result of Karib encountering Shirahoshi when he was secretly stealing. He was frightened and unintentionally awakened the Sea King's ability. He seems to have left Fishman Island. Under the boundless observation haki, Dustless did not find any trace of him from Fishman Island. Obviously, Karib escaped in advance. Mother, who is he? Shirahoshi whispered to Princess Otoheim. Princess Otoheim's face flashed unnaturally and she was extremely embarrassed. More than 10 years ago, she was unfortunately caught by human beings and sent to celestial dragons to be sold as a slave. It was Dustless who bought her. Therefore, Dustless is her master and Princess Otoheim is just a slave. As the daughter of Princess Otoheim, Shirahoshi, to some extent, also belongs to Dustless. In other words, she is also a slave. I'm your father. Staring at Shirahoshi's huge body, Dustless grinned and his pleasant expression was extraordinarily warm. Dustless's face was full of magnanimity. As for the original Neptune, he was cuckolded by Dustless many years ago and was later killed by him. There is no such person in Shirahoshi's memory. Princess Otoheim blushed when she heard the words and immediately nodded to Shirahoshi. Whiz! A hurricane came head-on. Dustless was slightly stunned, and immediately he was surprised to find that he was stuffed between two lumps of meat, and the soft touch made him a little dazed. I don't know when it started, Dustless has been sandwiched between Shirahoshi's two peaks, cough cough cough. Let me down. Even with the thickness of Dustless's face, his old face was red at the moment, and his voice was a little trembling. I will not let father go. The huge head shook like a rattle drum. Shirahoshi mercilessly refused Dustless. Not only that, but she squeezed Dustless together even harder. His face was red and his whole body was squeezed in the lumps of meat. Seeing this scene, Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and immediately promised, this time I will take you and your present away from the Fishmen Island to live in other places. Princess Otoheim also nodded gently to Shirahoshi. Shirahoshi, who was skeptical, let go of Dustless. A pair of shining eyes still circled Dustless. As long as he showed signs of escaping, she would take advantage of the situation to attack. Chapter 9:12. Dustless felt helpless about Shirahoshi. He didn't expect the girl to be so enthusiastic about him. Shirahoshi misses father very much. Princess Otoheim said softly as she looked at Dustless. Hearing this, Dustless gently nodded. He could see the wings of hope in Shirahoshi's eyes. The deep yearning of blood is thicker than water is not like this. But I am just a fake. I just said it casually. I didn't expect this little girl to take it seriously. Scratching his head, Dustless said with a headache. What's wrong with that? What are you dissatisfied with? You have a daughter who can control Sea King, don't tell me you still feel wronged. Princess Otoheim said with a roll of her eyes. This is not. Dustless shook his head and immediately stopped thinking about this trivial matter. He said in a deep voice, the Fishman Island is not safe for the time being. The boy named Karib is not a good thing. I am afraid that he will say that Shirahoshi is the ancient weapon Sea King. Pirates hold grudges, and Karib is no exception. Since he suffered a loss at Shirahoshi's hands, he will definitely find ways to retaliate. This is the nature of pirates. Using Shirahoshi's identity is the best way to break through. Follow me to Mariewa, it is safe enough. After thinking for a while, Dustless said with certainty. Hearing this, Princess Otoheim shook her head and denied Dustless's idea. She said angrily, that is the headquarters of the world government. Going there is equivalent to setting yourself on fire. So what, I am the world's best defense. Then glancing at Princess Otoheim quietly, Dustless suddenly understood what she was thinking. I advise you not to have any illusions about those fish people. They are just fence-sitters. Seeing Princess Otoheim so persistent on the Fishman Island, Dustless couldn't help but feel speechless. The rioting fish people said that they would cut off her head and send it to Biga's mom to extinguish Biga's anger. He didn't expect this woman to be so stubborn. This is my choice. Princess Aji bit her lower lip, and her delicate face tried to hide her calmness. Even so, Dustless could still see her trembling lips. Boom boom boom. At this moment, a group of pitch-black men and horses suddenly attacked, and the ground rumbled as they ran. Princess Aji is there. Don't let her run away. Capture her and offer her to buy Gu Ma Mu in exchange for the piece of Fishmen Island. That's right, it's her honor to die for our Fishmen Island. This is the merit of several lifetimes. All kinds of dirty words stimulated Princess Aji, causing her to clench her fists tightly, her eyes brimming with despair. That's the best. Seeing this, Dustless chuckled in his heart. This was the only way for her to see reality clearly. Why are you treating Mother like this? She has spent so much effort on Fishman Island for more than 10 years, and now you are actually forcing Mother to throw her life away. Shirahoshi, with her huge body blocking in front of Princess Aji, said loudly. It would have been fine if she hadn't said anything, but once she did, it immediately attracted countless verbal sparks. A little kid who has not seen the world, you know nothing. By the way, Princess Shirahoshi is the biological daughter of Princess Aji. If we give her to Bai Gu Mamu together, the big thief will definitely forgive us. That's right. That's reasonable. The greedy eyes fell on Shirahoshi, and this group of mobs shouted, and their ecstatic expressions were as if they saw the savior, and all of them ran towards Shirahoshi with various weapons in their hands. Things that don't know life and death. His eyes emitted a cold light, and Wu Chen's murderous intent surged. The powerful haki hidden in his body slowly overflowed, and the space splashed with faint ripples. He was about to use Haoshiku haki to kill this group of people, but an unexpected afterimage swept into the crowd and started killing. Pucci! Pucci! The rioting murlocs didn't even have time to scream before they were brutally killed. Their bodies were covered with bloody scars, and their flesh was lacerated as they breathed their last. Sure enough, women can't be provoked, and the destructive power they create is unimaginable. A group of idiots, they deserve it. The Black Shadow and this group of rookie fishmen may look down on them, but Dustless saw it clearly. The figure who killed the fishmen was Princess Aji. After Dustless's training for a while, her strength was quite good. At least it was easy for her to kill these ordinary fishmen. You want to kill me, that's okay. Princess Aji's cold eyes looked around at the remaining fishmen, and she said coldly, now you even have the idea of Shirahoshi. A shameless person has a bottom line. It seems that I was too naive before. Then she jumped into the crowd and began to kill mercilessly. This group of fishmen is not worthy of sympathy. Can you skillfully control the ability of Sea King, Shirahoshi? Dustless turned to Shirahoshi and asked with hope in his eyes. As the name implies, Sea King is the king of sea kings. He can summon and control sea kings with a size of tens of thousands of meters, and there are hundreds or even thousands of them. Besieged by thousands of sea kings with a length of up to 10,000 meters or even larger and longer, anyone will die. Hearing this, Shirahoshi tried to communicate with the sea kings, and shook her head after a while. She just awakened by accident, and the number of sea kings that she can control for the time being can be counted on one hand. All of this still needs time to practice. Chapter 9:13. His bright eyes dimmed slightly, and the light in Dustless's eyes disappeared. All this is indeed a bit early. After all, Shirahoshi has just awakened, and it is a bit difficult to force her to control the Sea King now. Father, am I still useless? Tears welled up in Bai Xing's eyes as she spoke in a self-reproachful manner. You think too much. This is not the reason why you are useless. The time is still short, and the future is still long. Dustless showed a comforting smile and immediately explained, it is also an accident that you can suddenly awaken the Sea King's ability. You can reach the point of perfection if you practice slowly in the future. Bai Xing smiled happily when she heard this. She nodded her head like a chick. I will definitely work hard. Dustless also showed a knowing smile, and then turned his head to look. The castle, which was clean before, was bloody, and there were corpses everywhere. Among the corpses, only Princess Otoheim was left standing. I plan to stay on Fishman Island for a few more days. Staring at the back of Princess Otoheim, Dustless said thoughtfully. Fishman Island avoids the world government and Marine's eyes and ears. It is most suitable to use this place to exercise Shirahoshi's ability. It is okay to rest for a few days. Time flies, and 3 days slipped away in a blink of an eye. In the bustling streets of Dresses, the flow of people was moving, and couples dressed in revealing clothes strolled peacefully on the island, with happy smiles, and the harmonious atmosphere made people sink uncontrollably. Boom! Inside Dressrosa's palace, a dull gunshot suddenly sounded, and everyone was stunned. Looking up, the doubts on everyone's faces disappeared. There was their king, Doflamingo's palace, a member of the 7 warlords of the sea, where the pirates gathered. Dressrosa was able to avoid the harassment of pirates over the years because of him. Inside the palace, the figure kneeling on the ground was scared out of his wits. It was Karib who came out of Fishman Island. At this moment, he was sweating and his heart was beating fast. Turning his head and looking at the hole in the wall behind him, he couldn't help but shiver. What did you say? Repeat what you said just now. If you dare to lie to me, you'll be chopped into pieces. That would be the result of God's blessing. Doflamingo, who was sitting on the throne, said coldly. Then, he played with the exquisite gun in his hand. The black barrel of the gun was aimed at Karib's head. I wouldn't dare to lie even if you beat me to death. Karib was so scared that he repeatedly kowtowed. Soon after, he said with great certainty, I saw it with my own eyes. The princess of the Fishmen Island, Shirahoshi, summoned a large group of sea kings, and they were at least 20,000 meters in size. Not only that, those sea kings that normally don't have any intelligence seem to have been given a mind of their own. They all unconditionally obey the orders of that Shirahoshi. No matter what, Karib described to his heart's content. As long as he could fool Doflamingo, he would be able to escape after swindling wealth and glory. There was no need to care about anything else. After all, even if Doflamingo knew that he was lying to him, Karib would run off to some unknown island to enjoy his life. Are there any experts on Fishmen Island for the time being? Doflamingo asked craftily, his eyes burning with the luster of ambition. Experts? Karib was stunned when he heard the words. He immediately remembered that Dustless had accidentally spied on him. When he was about to expose him, he immediately remembered Doflamingo's ruthless and cruel treatment. He flattered, no, absolutely no. I can guarantee it with my head. By the way, only the Straw Hat Pirates appeared during the War of the Crowns. Anyway, he would run away after getting Doflamingo's benefits. You can go now. I will definitely send someone to deliver what I promised you. Doflamingo waved his hand and impatiently asked him to leave. Karib bowed and respectfully retreated. Creak. The door behind Doflamingo was pushed open, and a short, sloppy man walked out, swaying as he walked. It was the second in command of the Donquaquade family, Treble. Young master, that kid must be lying to us. Aren't ancient weapons all machines? That, Pluto, is one. Treble's eyebrows were full of unkindness. That's not necessarily true. Pluto is a machine, but there's no rule that Sea King is also a machine. Doflamingo's eyes flashed and said, no matter what that Princess Shirahoshi is, she can control a Sea King with a volume of 20,000 meters. It sounds like there's no limit. Speaking of this, Doflamingo's tone stopped, and he was a little sluggish. There are thousands of Sea Kings all over the world, and they are everywhere in the sea. If they can control Sea Kings, the world is just around the corner. No matter what, Fishmen Island is worth a trip. Doflamingo changed the topic and said decisively. If Princess Shirahoshi really has the ability that Karib said, it's naturally a good thing. Even if she doesn't, it's not a big deal. At most, it's just a waste of time. Anyway, Doflamingo has been bored recently. This. Young master, although I also want to go to Fishmen Island, there's a big problem right now. Chapter 9:14. Hearing Treble's words, Doflamingo couldn't help but feel angry. Every time he was ambitious to do something, all kinds of embarrassing things always pop up, and he was sad as if he had eaten a fly. Big problem? Tell me clearly. With a dark bronze face, Doflamingo said in an extremely displeased tone. Treble's sloppy face solidified, glanced at Doflamingo, and said cautiously, about a day ago, the Bigamam pirates disappeared, and the destination seems to be the Fishman Island. Hearing this, Doflamingo's violent temper disappeared, and the surging hostility also quickly converged. His eyes quickly changed, and a fog suddenly rose in his heart. What is Big Mam going to the Fishman Island for? Scratching his head, Doflamingo was puzzled. Big Mam doesn't even want the territory now, and it is suspicious to go directly to the Fishman Island. Especially in this sensitive period, Doflamingo is looking for the legendary Sea King. As a result, Big Mam went to the Fishman Island. It would be strange if he didn't think about it. Call the cadres and go to the Fishman Island together. We can't let Big Mam take the lead. Gritting his teeth, the last hesitation was finally replaced by greed. After getting Shirahoshi, the whole world is at your fingertips, not to mention Big Mam. Then remembering the shadow left by Big Mam a few years ago, Doflamingo seriously said, follow the Big Mam pirates and take the opportunity to seize that Shirahoshi. The palace of the Fishman Island collapsed and was annihilated. Dustless and the other two temporarily lived in the castle where Shirahoshi usually lived, surrounded by groups of sea kings. Even if the rebellious mobs wanted to catch Princess Otoheim, they looked at the pirates with a size of 10,000 meters and slipped away. Although it was only a few days, Shirahoshi's talent in controlling sea kings was improving rapidly. In just a few days, it was not enough to reach the point of perfection. Under the careful guidance of Dustless, it was also different from the original. The number of sea kings under control also gradually increased, 40 or 50, 60 or 70, 100. The number is constantly increasing, and with the passage of time, it is only a matter of time before she becomes the king of sea kings. Thank you, father. A joyous and excited laughter sounded in his ears. He shifted his gaze and saw that it was Shirahoshi, who was laughing happily. In the water, she swayed her elegant body excitedly like a lively child. This is your own talent. I'm just guiding the power out of your body. The credit is yours. Dustless calmly replied. Soon after, he looked at the lump of meat beneath his feet and couldn't help but feel speechless. At this moment, he was rather embarrassed as he stood on the Jade Maiden Peak. His head swayed along with it, and he felt extremely dizzy. Alright, that's all for today. Dustless suddenly felt a wave of emptiness and exhaustion. Noticing that it was not too late, he turned around and left. The Sea King's ability was something that could be slowly trained. There was no benefit in being overly enthusiastic, and it might even lead to unexpected situations. Inside the castle, Princess Otoheim had been waiting for a long time. She had prepared delicious dishes in advance. She stood at the entrance of the castle, waiting for the arrival of Dustless and Shirahoshi. This gentle appearance was the complete opposite of her previous cold and harsh self. You're finally here. After a while, a huge mermaid suddenly appeared in her eyes. Only then did Princess Aji let out a sigh of relief. These days, those rioters were always targeting them. Her heart was always restless. Boom boom boom, just as he was about to eat and drink, a series of dull collisions attracted the attention of Dustless. His observation hockey also searched for the source of the turmoil. After a while, he sighed and began to talk to himself. It seems that I was born to be tired. Trouble has come again. But this time, it's also good. I've completely solved the big problem of Big Mom. Princess Otoheim's face wrinkled when she heard the words, and a worried look appeared on her face. She raised her eyes and happened to see Dustless casting a comforting look at her. You mother and daughter can stay here with peace of mind. Leave Big Mom to me. His eyes fell on Shirahoshi's face, and seeing her nervous face, Dustless grinned, giving people a feeling of a cool breeze, and the faint arc of his mouth was like a panacea, and Shirahoshi's tense nerves also relaxed. People always have to earn their own living. You should be able to protect your mother, right, Shirahoshi? Floating in front of Shirahoshi, Dustless smiled and encouraged her. The tone was mixed with the magic of seduction, and Shirahoshi couldn't help but nod. When she came back to her senses, even she herself was at a loss. It doesn't matter, believe in yourself, and remember to leave me some food, especially you, Shirahoshi. Princess Otoheim stared at the gradually disappearing back with a complicated gaze. She found that she had been worried for a while. The so-called strongest Whitebeard was destroyed by Dustless, let alone this group of shrimp soldiers and crab generals. Boom! At the same time, a huge figure jumped to the ground. Her huge body made the whole ground tremble and splashed a lot of smoke and dust. The huge figure was looming in the dust, and disgusting liquid dripped from the corners of her mouth. This vague outline was one of the Yonko, for emperors, Big Imam. Chapter 9:15. Obviously, it was the first time she came to the strange place of the Fishman Island. Big Mom looked around curiously, then opened her mouth and a fishy smell came out. What the hell is going on with this island? Why is there not even a ghost? Baigu Mamu rolled her huge eyes and roared unhappily. The air waves spit out are very corrosive, and even the air in the atmosphere can be corroded and annihilated, forming a large vacuum area, filled with suffocating danger. Don't tell me that Louis South has slipped away in advance. Big Gumam's face was full of bad luck. They were busy for a long time. The entire Big Gumam pirates rushed here without stopping. As the protagonist, Dustless was nowhere to be seen. In the end, it was all in vain. Return. After a while, Big Mama waved her hand impatiently and went to the pirate ship angrily. Every time she took a step, the ground cracked, and even because of the ferocious force, the whole battleship was stepped on by Big Mama and made a creaking sound. The members of the Big Mom pirates looked at each other, and they were all sweating, fearing that Big Mom would step on the entire battleship. Shoo! The dim sky shone brightly for a moment, countless flashes poured down, and the entire sky was dyed golden. This sudden scene caused the whole ship of the Big Mom pirates to be sluggish. Get off the ship, someone is attacking. Perceiving the sharpness of the light bullet, the light that can easily penetrate steel made Big Mom's heart cold. Under the light of this destruction, it only takes a simple move, the Big Mom pirates that she has painstakingly built for many years. I'm afraid that there will be no more than 1 in 10. Most of the pirates who were there to make up the numbers would die. Yasakani no Magatama. Many light bullets, like the sand of the Ganges, unscrupulously devoured the lives of the members of the Big Mom pirates. In the blink of an eye, most of them were ruthlessly cut open and hundreds of scorched holes were gouged out of their bodies. In just a few seconds, more than half of the Big Mom pirates were killed or injured. Bastard! Glaring angrily at Dustless, Baigu Ma's eyes widened as he spat out a strange ripple from his mouth. The target of his attack was Dustless, who was floating in the air. What the hell is this? Dustless frowned as a special gust of wind swept past him. Suddenly, he felt as if his right arm was made of water. Strangely, it started to drip slowly. No. This is melting. Acid? Dustless's bright eyes flashed with surprise. This was the first time he had encountered such a strange ability. Your ability seems to be able to melt and corrode everything that comes into contact with your ability, Poochie. Dustless raised his hand and chopped off the right arm that was about to swallow his whole body without hesitation. His expression was incomparably calm. Ha! As expected of a Marine Admiral, you are unexpectedly smart. Baigu's mother opened her mouth and laughed. Immediately, she looked at the corpses on the ground and her smile was instantly replaced by a dark haze. Her green face twitched. She had lost all the money that she had saved up for many years. Outrageous. This is interest. Staring at Dustless's melted right arm, Baigu's mother said with a smile. Interest? Are you an idiot old woman dreaming? A merciless taunt made Baigu's mother angry, and then she saw Dustless's right arm surging, and countless mysterious liquid bodies emerged, full of majestic vitality. Immediately, in a few seconds, a new arm was condensed. How is this possible? Wiping her eyes, Baigu's mother was suddenly dumbfounded, staring at the intact Dustless. This was beyond her previous understanding and completely contrary to the characteristics of the enemy she had fought in the past. This kind of ability is not something that a mere human should have. Are you daydreaming? The ghostly voice came suddenly. Baigu's mother was shining, and she suddenly turned around, but she was hit back with a ferocious kick. Caw caw caw, due to the strength being too strong, Baigu's mom's face completely collapsed. Lightspeed kick. Baigu's mother, who was caught off guard, flew out like a cannonball. Facing this unprecedented strength, it was difficult for her to stop her body. Boom boom boom, the ground was pulled into a long gully, which was hundreds of meters long. Baigu's mother, together with the mountain in the distance, collapsed and buried in it. However, as one of the 4 emperors, Baigu's mother was definitely not so easy to deal with. Ao ao ao, the roar full of endless indignation swept across the sky, and the roar of the awakened ancient beast could be heard from a distance of 1 kilometer away. Shio shio shio. It was obviously a huge body, and it should belong to the type that was not good at moving. However, at this moment, Baigu's mother's speed was beyond imagination, and only a faint afterimage could be captured. Looking for death? Idiot. With a sneer, the chakra in Dustless's body rapidly rotated, and it was full of majestic vitality. At this moment, the sky suddenly became extremely dark, and the dark sky was filled with the oppression of death. Baigu's mother's pupils shrunk, and she looked up, only to see countless mahogany falling from the sky. Celestial Method, Bright God Gate. Chapter 9:16. Baigu Mamu's old face showed signs of turning into a black pot. The scene of a meteor shower was beautiful and touching, but, the sky was inexplicably raining a group of deadly, wood rain. She really couldn't be happy. Especially when she sensed the power of the Bright God Gate, falling from the sky to suppress the whole world. Baigu Mamu's heart was even colder from head to toe. This kind of godlike consummate skill was simply cheating. This was a foul roar. Baigu Mamu opened her mouth, revealing fangs that were not inferior to the sawtooth of a shark. Baigu Mamu would not wait for death. She aimed at the sky and roared violently. The acid that was more powerful than the one that corroded Dustless broke out of her mouth. Ripples splashed in the void, and the invisible impact swept out like a dragon hurricane. This guy's ability is not simple. It can actually corrode the Bright God Gate technique. The corner of Dustless's eyes widened, and he said in surprise. Looking up at the sky, one could be surprised to find that the thick red roundwood was constantly shrinking and being corroded quickly. The redwood that was originally thicker than a person was like a thumb, but what can be done is always limited. Dustless immediately shook his head and said. His expression was extremely calm. Baigu Mamu could only corrode a small part of it. Most of the red roundwood still fell mercilessly. It was already commendable that she could do this, and it was worthy of praise. Boom! 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 Where Baigu Mamu was, a large amount of smoke and dust splashed. The empty land was filled by the Bright God Gate and turned into an endless mangrove forest. She actually avoided it. Her ability to escape is not bad. Looking as far as the eyes could see, the interior of the smoke and dust soaring into the sky, Dustless's clear eyes could be seen clearly. There was no one inside, and there was no trace of Baigu Mamu's back at all. It was silent. Obviously, at the critical moment just now, Baigu Mamu had escaped the suppression of the Bright God Gate and escaped. However, at this moment, the ground where Dustless stood turned into a black shadow unexpectedly. It was extremely dark, and the outline reflected on the ground was obviously a huge human body. The most eye-catching thing was her fangs that could tear steel apart. Drip drip drip, drops of unknown green liquid dripped onto the ground, emitting white smoke and corroding the ground mercilessly. After a while, the gigantic shadow finally revealed her ferocious appearance. Her fist, which was a few times bigger than a human head, was raised up high. Her strength was so strong that it could easily destroy a mountain. Armament hockey hardening. The flesh fist instantly turned into a deep dark black, and the power increased by 3 points. Not only that, this fist covered with armament hockey also overflowed with a lot of boiling liquid. Disappear for this old mother. He glanced at Dustless, who was motionless like a mountain, with extreme hatred. Carrying Bigu Mamu's resentment, his fist blasted out. His target was Dustless, who was motionless. Although Bigu Mamu was the only woman among the Yonko, her strength was unquestionable. Perhaps it was because her back was facing Bigu Mam, but she didn't see the slight smile on Dustless's lips. His indifferent eyes obviously didn't put Bigu Mam in his eyes. Everything seemed to go smoothly. Poochie. The immovable Dustless was penetrated in an instant. The fist went through his abdomen, leaving a huge hole. There was no doubt that he was going to die. Baigu's mom was wild with joy and almost danced with joy. However, after a few seconds of joy, that strange feeling made her eyes glaze over. It was as if her soul had been sucked out, and she was at a loss. Even though his fist had passed through Dustless's body, it was unable to shake him. In fact, it didn't even touch the edges of Dustless's body. It felt more like his fist had struck empty air. It's impolite not to reciprocate. It's time for me to retaliate. Completely ignoring the fist inserted in his abdomen, Dustless's body strangely floated in the air. Just now, he actually used Kamui to completely ignore it. Therefore, Bigu Mamu did not attack Dustless from beginning to end. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, between his fingers, high-density light speed condensed, aimed at Bigu Mamu's right eye, and immediately shot out mercilessly. The fragile part of the eye has zero chance of defending against the impact of the beam. Laser. The straight speed of light whistled out and disappeared in a flash. The dazzling brilliance made people unable to open their eyes. Bigu Mamu quickly closed her eyes. In the face of this devil-like beam, she was helpless and unlucky. Poochie. Even if closing the eyes can play a certain defensive role, the right eye still turned into a scorched hole. Bigu Mamu gritted her teeth in pain. The hysterical posture revealed the madness of perishing together. Dustless completely enraged her. The rough big hand stroked the right eye in disbelief. Even if both eyes were destroyed by Dustless, it was actually not a big deal. After all, the ability of observation hockey was more reliable than the eyes. However, the most unacceptable thing for Bigu Mamu was that she was perfectly fine with 4 limbs, but she was crippled by Wu Qin. Moreover, she was gloriously turned into a one-eyed man. This was unbearable. Chapter 9:17. Twitching her arm, touching her burnt right eye back and forth, Bigu Mam tried her best to hide her calmness, but even so, the squirming corners of her mouth could still be seen that she was in a state of rage at the moment. As long as someone dared to step on the door, they could instantly detonate this blazing volcano. There was no need for a big flame, a spark could ignite a prairie fire. No matter when, there was the existence of courting death. Yo! Don't show such a man-eating expression, you should thank me for turning you into a one-eyed dragon. Some people want to ask me to do this, but it's impossible. This is the treatment of a regular customer, a luxurious VIP treatment. The untimely ridicule added fuel to the fire, full of endless sarcasm and contempt. Looking closely, it was Dustless who deserved a beating. The joking expression and frivolous tone provoked Bigu Mam's reason. The smiling expression was looking forward to looking at Bigu Mam, who was about to go berserk. Obviously, it was deliberately provoking Bigu Mam. Clenching her huge iron fist tightly, Bigu Mam almost vomited blood when she heard the words. The meaning of these words seemed to be that she had to thank Dustless for his kindness. Doesn't that mean that you destroyed my right eye, and I have to thank you for your greatness? Bigu Mam's face was red. To be honest, it was the first time she had seen such a shameless person. Do you need me to sing praises for you again and praise your great deeds? At the end, Bigu Mam's voice increased dozens of times, and the whole person almost jumped up exaggeratedly. This old woman is full of energy, and she can live for 20 or 30 years. Dustless couldn't help but feel a chill. Bigu Mam's appearance was extremely ugly. Now, this appearance of killing into the awe-inspiring, even more perfectly showed her ugliness. The fat face trembled, and the eyes were completely squeezed into a line. The face was covered with all kinds of spots, and the whole person's face was almost purple. In Dustless's mind, Blackbeard suddenly appeared. The two of them were the most suitable match, and no one was picky about who. Grumble. Of course, this time it was not hunger, but after seeing the appearance of Baigu Mam, the whole person no longer felt empty, and the blood was revived in an instant. In his life, it was the first time that he was disgusted to the point of being full. Boom boom boom. The violent vibration pulled back Dustless's thoughts, and the particles on the ground trembled slowly. Looking as far as the eye could see, it was Bigu's mom who had flipped out. A transparent, viscous liquid was seeping out from her body. It was endless, like a boundless ocean. The ground that was engulfed and corroded by the liquid would emit white waves of air. Soon after, it would die completely and turn into a pitch-black land of death. Baigu Mamu herself was not affected. Even if she was bathed in the acid, she could still move freely. Baigu Mamu, who was angry, was obviously going to go all out. The corpses of her own people on the ground were all corroded by her. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The majestic breath broke out of the body, and the monstrous Haushiku Haki danced wildly in the sky, and the void was crushed by the momentum of the supreme hegemon, showing a distorted shape. Not only that, this Haushiku Haki also played a propulsive role, and the acid, which was originally in the state of stagnant water, suddenly rolled like waves. It was like an ocean wave that flowed without end, and in the end, it became a great wave that covered the sky and covered the earth, intending to swallow Dustless along with his bones. Once he was affected by it, then not even his corpse would remain, and it would absolutely be an extremely miserable ending. It's really surprising. The so-called Yonko, for emperors, is just like this. Seeing this, Dustless's eyes flashed with deep disappointment. He was looking forward to the performance of Baigu Mamu, but he did not expect to play such a plain and bad show. In the final analysis, you, Yonko, for emperors, are also a group of ordinary people with ordinary flesh. Forcing you to come up with a gorgeous show is my idea is too simple. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, the surging acid waves would completely annihilate Dustless. Baigu Mamu was very excited when she saw this scene, and her remaining eye was enlarged to see all this. Her bloodshot eyes were filled with endless longing. Towards Dustless, Baigu Mamu had a kind of hatred that went deep into her soul. She hoped that Dustless would disappear forever without leaving a corpse behind. This island. There's no way, it's destroyed. Anyway, it has nothing to do with me. I was just passively counterattacking. Naturally, all the faults were pushed to Baigu Mamu. Dustless condensed the majestic chakra, and the explosive energy fluctuations in his body were enough to crush all creatures. Dustless spread out his hands and hugged the sky. At the moment when groups of acid were about to swallow him, the chakra that had been gathered for a long time burst out with full force, and there was no need to hide it. Super Shinra Tensei. The strength of a ninjutsu was completely dependent on the user's own chakra evaluation. Dustless was a different kind of jubi, and the chakra in his body could be said to be infinite. The high-density chakra that he could mobilize was as much as the sea, and the entire Fishman Island was attacked by the Super Shinra Tensei. Bang, bang, bang. With a loud bang, the entire Fishman Island's geographical environment was instantly rewritten, or it could be said that it was sent to the ancient era by Dustless. All the buildings on the island collapsed and disappeared, and the wind and sand were everywhere, as if they had come to a desert. At the center of the battle between Dustless and Baigu Mamu, a deep pit with a radius of 10 kilometers appeared. As for the huge acid waves just now, they evaporated instantly. Chapter 9:18. Looking down from the sky, a huge crater that seemed to have been hit by a meteorite almost affected the entire Fishman Island. It was incomparably hideous, occupying almost a quarter of the area of the Fishman Island. Under one blow, the Fishman Island, which had a history of thousands of years, or even longer, completely entered the end. The geographical environment of the Fishman Island was ruthlessly and coldly destroyed, and it was only a matter of time before it was swept into the garbage dump of history. Not dead? A whisper broke the dead atmosphere, proving that someone was still alive. Looking as far as the eye could see, a figure covered with blood was buried in the sand. Even though she was infinitely close to death, she was still breathing weakly and was able to struggle at death's door. However, from the wounds all over her body, her death was close at hand. You should still be able to move. Whitebeard, 100 Beast Kaido, and Red Hair Shanks are all extremely durable. You shouldn't be so fragile. Dustless said frankly. He was convinced that Bigu's mom would not be so useless. The strength of the Yonko, 4 emperors, is not only incredible, but their endurance is also beyond imagination. When they were in the Marine headquarters, the old Whitebeard was cut open several times, and even his heart was crushed, but he still showed the power to destroy the world. Even if Bigu Ma is not as good as Whitebeard, her endurance is extremely strong. Cough. Sure enough, Bigu Ma's corpse coughed violently, raised her head, revealing a face full of pustules, and her cold eyes were locked on Dustless. Damn, it hurts. The tide-like pain surged all over her body, and Bigu Ma was in so much pain that she wanted to die. Almost all her ribs were broken. It was a miracle that she could still stand up. Her ferocious and gloomy eyes looked at Dustless, and her murderous eyes were full of twisted hatred. She couldn't wait to turn Dustless into a stick. Are you still going to struggle? You are also one of the Yonko, 4 emperors. I want to give you a decent death. Let go, so you can suffer less physical pain. Reading the hatred in Bigu's eyes, Dustless said out of kindness, after death, I will make you into a puppet. This is also a blessing. However, Bigu Mamu obviously would not agree to Dustless's good intentions. She was the kind of stubborn person who would rather die than surrender. Moreover, Dustless wanted to make her into a puppet, which was even more impossible. Dream on. Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. Clenching his fists, Bigu Mamu said resolutely. As one of the Yonko, 4 emperors, everyone has a last resort. Forget it, you're going to die anyway. I didn't mind euthanizing you, but since you like to die in pain so much, I'll reluctantly fulfill your wish. Seeing that Bigu Mamu was so insensible, Dustless's expression gradually became cold, and chakra with the nature of disaster surrounded his body. Even his deep eyes have undergone amazing changes. Looking at Bigu Mamu, she instinctively looked back and felt that the god of death was smiling at her, at this time, in the other direction. It was so dangerous just now. If we arrived a little later, we would have been destroyed by that force. Bastard, when did such a big shot appear on the small Fishman Island? In an obscure port, the Don Quixote pirates secretly landed. Looking back, the pirate ship they were on had become a pile of scrap metal. Just now, a majestic impact directly destroyed their pirate ship. If it weren't for the fact that they were already close to the port, they would have been buried in the depths of the sea if they were a little late. Many of the Flamingo pirates had just walked through the gates of hell. Young master, are we going to retreat? The fluctuations of the two fighting just now. Treble's tone stagnated, with a little fear and fear. Not only him, but all the members of the Don Quixote pirates looked at the northern sky in unison. The fighting fluctuations there could be clearly felt even tens of kilometers away. A group of Don Quixote pirates were sweating, and their hearts were in their throats. This level of war is obviously beyond the level of an admiral. Doflamingo was also feeling guilty, and his forehead was covered with crystal drops of sweat visible to the naked eye. His eyes flashed with fear. He guessed right, the initiator was Bigu Mamu who came before him. No, now is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. While they are fighting, let's take the opportunity to capture Shirahoshi. Greed finally prevailed over reason, and Doflamingo's tone was unquestionable. His cold eyes then looked around, and the members of the Don Quixote pirates all shut up. If they irritate him, they may be killed by the angry Doflamingo. You don't have to worry. As a leader, not only must he use force to oppress, but he must also know how to use force. His voice was lowered, and all the hostility in his words disappeared. After getting Shirahoshi, we will be the overlords of this world, and you will all be heroes. Follow me to look down on this world. Doflamingo raised his arms and shouted, and his tone was full of endless temptation. The cadres of the Don Quixote pirates immediately became hesitant. In life, everyone lives for fame and fortune. Chapter 9:19. The nature of pirates is naturally greedy. Doflamingo covets Shirahoshi's ability and wants to use it as a benchmark to rule the world. After all, he has too many enemies. But the fishman named Shirahoshi will definitely not be captured. What if she orders the Sea Kings to attack us? Don't forget that this is the Fishman Island. There are countless large Sea Kings wandering around. Maybe we will turn from prey to hunters. I believe no one in this world will sit still and wait for death. Doflamingo's subordinate Pika said. It's barely acceptable on the island, but in this vast ocean, the overlord is definitely the Sea King. A Sea King with a physique of tens of thousands of meters is enough to tear up all prey. The members of the Don Quixote pirates were silent and looked at Doflamingo. Since this boss intends to plot against Shirahoshi, he must come up with a feasible plan. There is no need to worry. Before all this, I have calculated it in advance. Hearing this, Doflamingo's face was full of confidence, and the corner of his mouth raised a confident arc, and he said in a deep voice, "The mermaid named Shirahoshi is indeed dangerous, but she is not invincible. I heard from Caribou that Shirahoshi's mother, Princess Otoheim, loves her very much." Doflamingo smiled gloomily. The meaning is self-evident. Obviously, he wants to capture Princess Otoheim, threaten Shirahoshi, and let her obediently wait for death. The means are a bit despicable, but there is no other way. Who let them be pirates? Time flies. Dustless and Bigu Ma finally reached the end. Can you still hold on? You and the strongest creature, 100 Beast Kaido, can fight. Wuchen stood alone, staring at 100 Beast Kaido in front of him. Although Kaido was in a sorry state, he was still able to stand up. His eyes flashed with surprise. Taking a closer look, Baigu Mamu was already riddled with holes. Even so, her face was still rosy, and her endurance was quite strong. Even with her calm appearance, it was not a problem for her to continue fighting for a few hours. Oh, his huge pupils enlarged as he laughed sinisterly. You want to kill me? You can't do that. Mocking Dustless to her heart's content, Baigu Mamu was unscrupulous. In fact, she was already a lamp that had run out of oil. Now, it was equivalent to the last moments of her life. However, she forced herself to hold on. In fact, she was dragging Dustless to the grave with her. Looks like your unrealistic thoughts haven't faded away. Dustless frowned slightly. He sensed the crazy aura around Baigu Mamu's body. He involuntarily shook his head. His expression immediately became stern as he whistled out like a ray of light shooting through the sun. It came and went without a trace, and one could only catch a faint afterimage, disappearing in a flash. It was wishful thinking to think that human eyes could keep up with the speed of light. Humph. With a snort of Jia, Baigu Mamu simply closed her eyes, the observation hockey spread out, and the traceless Dustless suddenly appeared in her perception. Found it. After a while, Baigu Mamu, who locked on Dustless's movement, opened her left eye, and her whole body was filled with terrible hostility. Her eyes were filled with deadly danger. The black iron fist covered with acid blasted out, and the air shook, and the destructive wave eroded toward Dustless. Photons floated and condensed into Dustless's thin body. Staring at the oncoming fist, Dustless's eyebrows couldn't help but raise, and a transparent fist was clearly visible. A ray of light emerged from the palm of his hand, and it immediately compressed rapidly, turning into a laser sword, revealing the sharpness of cutting iron like mud. Kusanagi Cloud's sword. Dustless looked cold, and the sword in his hand fell. A golden afterimage was drawn in the air, and the transparent acid fist was penetrated by this ray of sharp light. Poochie. The acid fist was immediately torn apart by the sword pressure and split into two halves, and immediately turned into countless transparent acid. It's actually broken? Bai Gu Ma Mu was surprised, and her absent-minded eyes were a little sluggish. Her proud move was so easily broken, and she felt powerless from the bottom of her heart. Her only remaining left eye was also dim. The bone marrow in her whole body seemed to have been sucked dry, and Bai Gu Ma Mu was particularly weak and haggard. Her original black hair instantly turned white, and her whole body swayed, as if she was mercilessly abandoned by the world. Poochie. There was a kind of piercing pain in her heart, and the burning pain spread to her limbs and bones. Bai Gu Ma Mu opened her eyes and looked down, and her heart was pierced through by a golden sword. A thin and weak body was reflected on the ground, and her hair was messy in the weeds, giving people a feeling that she was particularly free and easy. The initiator who gave Bai Gu Ma Mu a fatal blow was surprisingly the indifferent Dustless. The sharpness of the Kusanagi cloud sword crushed her heart, and not only that, the scorching light was incomparably hot, mercilessly destroying Bai Gu Ma Mu's internal organs, and rapidly reducing her vitality. Time is unforgiving, you are already old, and this world is no longer suitable for you. Along with your past glory, now vanish into thin air, Bai Gu Ma Mu. After saying that, Dustless slowly pulled out the Kusanagi cloud sword, and one could clearly see that Bai Gu Ma Mu's chest was pierced through by a large hole, and her internal organs were all destroyed, and she was completely dead. The invincible big pirate of a generation fell just like that. Chapter 920. The destruction of her heart also means that this person has come to an end, and her life has come to an end. Put Ong. Bai Gu Mam, who was emptied, fell to the ground. Her eyes were unwilling, and she looked blankly at Dustless who was looking down at her. Bai Gu Mam wanted to stand up and fight, but she was powerless. She knew that her floating life was about to be completely stabilized. You guy, Bai Gu Mam's eyes widened, and she used the last remaining time to recall the battle just now. About a few hours had passed, but she had been in a state of complete defeat, and she had been suppressed and beaten violently. This guy is obviously a god in human clothes. I can't beat him at all. Bai Gu Mam muttered to herself. Although her tone was full of unwillingness, she couldn't help but be convinced. The gap between her and Dustless was so big, like a giant and a baby in swaddling clothes. There was no extra strength to resist. Is this a human? Not at all. It is obviously a god in human skin sent by God to go against her. This is simply cheating. The two are completely different, and there is no comparison at all. Just now it was not so much a battle, it was better to say that Dustless has been playing with her to pass the boring time. However, listening to what you mean, it seems that you want to make my body into a puppet, and use me to deter the group of pirates in the New World? It's really a despicable means. Bai Gu Ma Mu used the last of her strength to say in a trembling voice. There was a touch of carefreeness in her words. Even if I die, I will not let you succeed. After that, Bai Gu Mam overflowed a lot of green acid and corroded her body. Seeing this, Dustless frowned slightly, and after thinking for a while, he stretched his brows again. Don't be mistaken, although I care about your body, I don't have to get it. Glancing at Bai Gu Mam, Dustless felt a little sleepy, and then sat on a clean stone casually, looking at her who was gradually corroded by acid, and his tone was unusually cold. You are just a harmless pawn. It is good if you can be used. If you can't be used, there is no harm in it. Impossible. Bai Gu's mom immediately denied Dustless's statement loudly and said affirmatively, you must want to use my reputation and the people's scruples about the four emperors to achieve some unknown purpose. Although it was just a simple and baseless conjecture, Bai Gu Ma Mu was very sure that no matter what the reason was, Dustless taking her body was definitely not a good thing. Don't think too highly of yourself. I'll repeat myself one last time. You're just a harmless chess piece. Even that Doflamingo guy is more useful than you. In short, you're just a dispensable pawn, Dustless mocked coldly. This fat idiot really overestimated himself. Ao, a heaven-shaking roar suddenly sounded out from the distance. Looking up, Zhao Fu saw a few 10,000-meter-long sea kings roaring, giving off boundless killing intent. What happened? Dustless frowned when he noticed the sea king's abnormality. The first person he thought of was Shirahoshi. Good chance, go to hell. Seeing that Dustless was distracted, Baigu's mom's eyes lit up. Her body stood up strangely. Her body was full of acid, and it pressed on Dustless like a mountain. Reckless thing. Noticing that the skies suddenly turned dark, Dustless's face was full of hostility. He looked up at Baigu's mom's body that was about to fall, and he immediately condensed an ugly black iron rod in his hand. Whoosh! The iron rod hit Baigu's mom's abdomen. Her body collapsed in an instant and disappeared strangely. She would definitely die if she was hit by the black rod supported by the yin-yang escape. After a few seconds, Dustless walked toward the castle where Shirahoshi and Princess Otoji were. At this moment, the castle. No, perhaps it could not be called a castle anymore. It was surrounded by ruins. There were fragments everywhere. The previous castle had disappeared. Jia 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 jia. There is really such an incredible ability in the world. It seems that Caribou Kid did not lie to me, but this kind of top-secret information can't be known to outsiders. I will kill that kid when I go back. Doflamingo smiled gloomily and proudly. He looked at Shirahoshi and the giant sea king behind her. His eyes were full of fanaticism. He seemed to have seen the future of the king of the world. His eyes were shining. There was also a graceful woman beside him. She had bright and dazzling golden hair. Her facial features were perfect. Her every move exuded a mature charm. She was very charming. The only pitiful thing was that at this moment, there were 2 lines of tears in the beautiful woman's crystal eyes. Behind her, there were many subordinates of Flamingo. Mother. Looking at Princess Otoji, who was captured as a hostage, Shirahoshi's nose was sour. She looked anxious and painful. Her crying appearance was particularly pitiful. There were also many Flamingo who were used to having a heart of stone. In the face of such a touching scene, not only did he not blame himself, but there was a hideous smile at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 921. It's normal for Doflamingo to be so cold. He was originally abnormal. He was ruthlessly treated in his childhood, which caused his whole life values to be distorted, so it's normal for him to be crazy. Because his whole life has been like this. Please let go of my mother, or I will not be polite to you. The white and tender lotus arm wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes, and Shirahoshi's eyes fell on Doflamingo, showing a rare touch of awe. The large sea king floating behind her also swam around, opening its bloody mouth, which was almost 1,000 meters long, and could even swallow the whole world, which made the Don Quixote family cadre frightened. This level of sea king, 1 or 2, or even dozens of them can be dealt with, but when this number multiplies, it becomes thousands of them. Even if Doflamingo followed suit, facing the siege of thousands of sea king, Admiral, Yonko, 4 emperors, or something will definitely die. Of course, Doflamingo's face is still full of morbid excitement. Looking across the layers of time and space, Doflamingo has seen him standing at the end of the sky, arrogant. Even the nightmarish enemy Dustless also bowed his head. Thinking about it, his heart jumped, looking at Shirahoshi, who was close at hand. He never felt that the position of the king of the world was so close to him. What pirate king, marine admiral is simply weak. Hey. It's okay to let her go, but you, his gaze circled around Shirahoshi as Doflamingo continued to bluff. Of course I can let your mother go, but in exchange, you have to immediately leave this place and serve me. Doflamingo smiled sinisterly, and there was a cunning light in the depths of his eyes. Of course, he will not let go of Princess Otoheim. This is the only existence that can restrain Shirahoshi at present. Don't listen to this man's nonsense, he is lying to you, the real purpose is actually you. Leave here quickly, your father will protect you. Princess Otoheim is also a veteran, and she naturally understands what Doflamingo wants, and she hurriedly shouted at Shirahoshi. "You can leave," but Doflamingo was calm, took out a gun from his arms, and pointed the dark muzzle at Princess Otoheim's head. "If you run, your mother will be killed." Seeing this, Shirahoshi's intention to leave immediately disappeared. She looked nervously at Doflamingo, looking pitiful, and finally gave up the idea of leaving. "Hey, emotional creatures are really the best to use, what a group of idiots." Doflamingo looked up to the sky and laughed unscrupulously. He saw Shirahoshi's weakness, so he used Princess Otoheim as a breakthrough point to threaten Shirahoshi. The current scene was just as he had imagined. Shirahoshi had indeed chosen to resign herself to death. By the way, Doflamingo's smile froze. If he remembered correctly, Princess Augi's husband should be King Neptune, but that guy seemed to have died many years ago. The father mentioned just now was obviously not Neptune. "Who is your father? Tell me, or I will kill Shirahoshi." "He's Shirahoshi, 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 Shirahoshi. Shirahoshi, 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 I haven't seen you for a while." "Your courage has grown a lot, Doflamingo." A ghostly voice suddenly entered his ears. Doflamingo instinctively broke out in goosebumps. This frivolous and lazy voice that looked down on all living things, he was very familiar with it. Not only was it familiar, but there was also a bone-deep fear. Fear of that man seemed to be an instinct, and Doflamingo himself couldn't control it. Shirahoshi, a figure appeared beside her, dustless. "Father." Seeing Dustless appear, Shirahoshi cried tears of joy, afraid that he would disappear again, so she couldn't wait to hold him up, and immediately buried him in the Jade Maiden Peak. "Let go of me, Shirahoshi," Dustless said with a headache. Looking at Princess Otoheim, who was taken hostage by Doflamingo, Dustless gave her a comforting look, indicating that she didn't need to worry. "What else do you have to explain, Doflamingo?" Dustless asked indifferently as his emotionless eyes fell on Doflamingo. I have nothing to explain, as you can see." Shirahoshi didn't know why, perhaps it was because of his habit of being a lackey, but every time Dustless spoke, the first thought that came to his mind was how to flatter. Just thinking about it made Doflamingo angry. After being a lackey for more than 10 years, obeying Dustless had become a habit. Every time he heard Dustless's voice, he would reflexively reveal a flattering expression. "That's right. Between you and me, there is indeed nothing worth saying. Perhaps I should ask directly, you captured my woman, how do you want to die?" Dustless's indifferent face disappeared, and his face was as cold as a blade. Staring at his expression, there was a faint stinging pain in his eyes. Gulp, the members of the Don Quixote pirates grunted unnaturally and looked at Dustless with fear. After Whitebeard was annihilated by him, the title of the strongest man in the world fell on him. Dustless's bottomless strength made all creatures living under the sea, land, and air feel fear. Chapter 922. Compared with his subordinates whose souls were cold, Doflamingo was as calm as a mountain. "I warn you, this guy caught our weakness, he will never let us go. There is only one way to betray him, death." Fearing that this group of family cadres would have some unrealistic ideas, Doflamingo had to raise his voice to warn them, and there was also an undisguised threat. "Don't forget, we still have a trump card." Pointing to Princess Otoheim beside him, Doflamingo regained some confidence. The role and benefits of this hostage were absolutely beyond imagination, and her power was even more than a Yonko for emperors. After all, Yonko, for emperors, had to kneel when they met Dustless. Only this woman would make him indecisive. The cadre of the Don Quixote family heard this and breathed a sigh of relief. They finally had some confidence. They unanimously leaned toward Princess Otoheim. This was their temporary life-saving chip. Naturally, they had to watch her closely. "Want to threaten me?" If it were Gorosei, 5 elder stars, they would have used this method. Seeing this, Dustless couldn't help but shake his head, squinting his eyes. This funny strategy was meaningless. Not to mention that Doflamingo didn't dare to kill Princess Odoheim now. He still needed this hostage for the time being. Taking a step back, if her blood splashed on the spot, with Rinnegan's incredible degree, resurrecting her was a trivial matter. Boom! The particles on the ground suddenly became restless, and then strangely floated in the air. Princess Odoheim was the same, the whole world seemed to be floating. The sudden scene made everyone stare at each other, including Princess Odoheim, who was also full of horror. She didn't realize what had happened. Wansho Heaven's Pull. A magnetic voice fell, and the initiator was also exposed. Doflamingo's face was full of anger, and his body was full of killing intent. Now that he and Dustless had a falling out, he naturally wouldn't show mercy. Even if Doflamingo wanted to show mercy, Dustless would definitely ignore him. Staring at the unguarded back of Princess Odoheim, Doflamingo's eyes flashed a ruthless color, and there was a dark evil smile, and immediately dozens of transparent lines popped out of his hand, connecting the limbs of Princess Odoheim. Parasitic thread. Doflamingo's fingers shook slightly. Princess Odoheim's drooping limbs immediately rose up. She waved her fist with a pained expression, smashing it towards Dustless's face. Only those with excellent eyesight could see that Princess Audrey's body was being controlled by transparent lines. Bang! He opened his palm and easily caught the incoming fist. This white line that controlled Princess Audrey naturally could not escape Dustless's capture. Hee hee. Even the cold-blooded you are unable to do anything to your lover. How laughable. To think that I used to think that you were an invincible and perfect existence. It turns out that you are also immortal. Seeing that Dustless couldn't bear to kill him, Doflamingo said disdainfully, you controlled this woman to attack. You must be helpless too, hee hee. Hearing this, Wuchen didn't even look at Doflamingo. He stared at the sharp white line with contempt on his face. Helpless? How laughable. Don't compare me with a mortal like you. It's easy to crack this line. Under the surprised gaze of the members of the Don Quixote pirates and Doflamingo himself, Dustless's petite right arm touched the parasitic thread connected to Princess Odoheim. Amaterasu. The line, as hard as iron, as if it had encountered a deadly natural enemy, touched the black fire that could devour everything, and instantly melted and collapsed. Princess Odoheim's painful expression also recovered. You can't do it, but it doesn't mean that others can't do it. Princess Odoheim was sent to Shirahoshi's hands. Dustless's killing intent was over. You have served me for more than 10 years. Today, I will give you a special discount. Everyone, report to hell together. Wu Chen's eyes were filled with blood-red hostility. He took a big stride forward and crossed the space. Bastard, so fast. Everyone spread out. Doflamingo's expression changed greatly, and his pupils shrank. With just a thought, Dustless arrived as scheduled, and his abnormal speed was beyond what he had ever seen in his life. Shoo shoo shoo. The members of the Don Quixote family heard this and did not hesitate to burst back. In a fight of this level, they would only be a burden if they attacked. Wire saw. An afterimage swayed in the void, followed by an invisible cold light that was sharper than a tachi swept across, cutting iron like mud. It was completely from Doflamingo's fruit ability, and it was very powerful. In the face of such a fierce attack, an insignificant finger was gently raised. Seeing this, Doflamingo's heart was filled with anger. What are you dreaming about? Do you want to use a finger to block my attack? Do you think I am that kind of fish? The corner of his mouth that was flying all over the sky stopped abruptly, and the thinking in Doflamingo's mind was short-circuited. What happened before was like a dream. The white jade finger raised high easily blocked the sharp wire saw and completely stopped Doflamingo's attack. Dustless's expression was slightly lazy, showing a flash of light with a playful tease. Immediately, his thumb gently exerted force, and a crisp sound made everyone stagnate. Bang! The wire saw that could be said to be unparalleled, harder than steel, suddenly broke in two, as fragile as paper. From the beginning to the end, Dustless only used a finger to break the string fruit's ability. Chapter 923. This dreamlike and unreal scene petrified all the Don Quixote cadres. In their hearts, Doflamingo is actually a godlike existence, the invincible strongest captain. Doflamingo's attack was stopped by the enemy with a single finger. The shock in his heart was like a stormy sea, out of control. Many of the Don Quixote cadres even pinched their skin, thinking that this was a dream, but the heart-wrenching pain made them speechless, and they all stared at Doflamingo in disbelief. When a person's faith collapses, this person will also be deeply hit and even unable to recover. The current members of the Don Quixote pirates are no more than this. Doflamingo's attack was blocked by his thumb, and these cadres' eyes were dead. They are rookies, who are not even as good as Doflamingo. What can they do? They are looking for death. Bullet line. The white light like a cannonball whistled out, and its power was no less than that of a bullet from a gun. Boom! However, when it came into contact with Dustless's forehead, the white light was bounced off, and a thumb-sized hole was gouged out of the ground. Shout! A gust of wind blew, and Doflamingo quickly retreated, his brows tightly wrinkled, feeling an abnormal headache, and there was a sense of powerlessness. This is a complete violation of the rules. Whiz! The blazing temperature condensed behind him, and Doflamingo, who was unaware of it, bowed his head and thought. After all, the speed of light has an absolute advantage. Armament hockey hardening. Although it is impossible to capture with the naked eye, observation hockey detects the position of Dustless, and Doflamingo used hockey to defend himself. However, being able to defend does not mean that he can withstand it unscathed. With a cold expression, Dustless was not merciful, and his fist covered with armament hockey mercilessly greeted Doflamingo's head. Poochie! The ugly iron fist blasted Doflamingo, and the ground also pulled out a burst of smoke and dust. Because of the fierce force, Doflamingo vomited blood again and again. Shoo shoo shoo! Dustless did not intend to stop, and dense flashes filled Doflamingo's entire eye socket. Yasakani no Magatama. Doflamingo was shocked to see such an exaggerated attack. He immediately forced his swaying body to stand up. He still had dreams that had yet to be realized. He absolutely could not lie here. I can only use the awakening fruit once. Hesitation flashed through Doflamingo's mind. At such a desperate moment, Doflamingo's strong desire to survive burst forth, driving him to burst forth with even more strength than before. Buzz buzz buzz. The ground throbbed and surged strangely. Several huge lines could be seen. Shield white line. The large lines on the ground rose from the ground and intersected in front of Doflamingo. They were as dense as a spider web, and their neat appearance was enough to defend against all attacks. Clang! 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 Chapter 924. The dense number of treasures of the king is overwhelming, and there are thousands of weapons stored in it. It is unrealistic to resist it with pure flesh. It is like a moth flying into the fire. The members of the Don Quixote pirates were cut into pieces, and the smell of blood was overwhelming. The scene was particularly depressing. In the face of such a cruel scene, Dustless was surprisingly calm. Traitors are not worthy of sympathy, all of this is their own fault. In a sense, Dustless's method is already harmonious and gentle. Some perverted pirates torture traitors, destroy them for 10 months and 8 months, and then kill them. This kind of horrible thing happens from time to time on the Grand Line. Don't show this kind of hateful expression. I told you before, the road is their own choice. I never forced them to be traitors. Aware of the cold eyes that want to perish together, Dustless's eyes turned and fell on Doflamingo, who was like a mad dog. His indifferent eyes looked down at him, and there was a touch of pity and sympathy in his words. All of this is your own fault. You can't blame others. You tried to challenge me with your meager strength. This is what you deserve. It's a pity for your loyal crew. Glancing at the Don Quixote family cadres who were smashed into pieces, Dustless felt quite unworthy for them. Dying for me. That's their blessing, I will naturally avenge them. Even though he has been knocked to the ground, Doflamingo's sharp tongue is still unforgiving. Really, that's a pity, you don't have the ability to do it. Hearing this, Wu Chen sighed softly and expressed deep regret. Then, he walked out slowly. Light floated in his hand, and a big sword with cold light flashed in the blink of an eye. Dustless, holding the Kusanagi sword in his hand, intends to give Doflamingo a fatal blow. A person's life is always accompanied by endless accidents. No one can say that they are absolutely in control of the world. Now, Dustless's unexpected thing happened in an instant. Caw caw caw. The ground next to Doflamingo suddenly burst, and a white figure came out of it, then helped Doflamingo up and looked at Dustless. Dustless's expression changed when he saw this. He glared at the person who had suddenly disturbed the situation and said gloomily, "Bai Zhu, what is the meaning of this? Don't forget who created you." The person supporting Doflamingo was Dustless's most loyal subordinate, White Zetsu. Bai Zhu didn't care. He didn't bow and scrape like he used to. He said, "Master Dustless, as you can see, you're not wrong. I betrayed you." White Zhu said, beaming with joy. He looked like a villain who had achieved his goal. Giving you intelligence and consciousness was indeed a mistake. When he created White Zetsu, Dustless did not take away his intelligence and consciousness. In other words, White Zetsu was like a normal human being. They had their own way of thinking. It's too late to say this now, Master Dustless. White Zetsu shrugged frivolously and immediately cut off Doflamingo's arm. Half of the arm merged with Doflamingo's body, and the latter's body that was full of injuries healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Betrayed you? You forced me to do this. Doflamingo, who was gradually recovering, shouted. People like you can't live in this world. Your existence is a blasphemy to all living creatures. It's not just me, I'm afraid Hawkeye also has the same idea. A person who can never be surpassed, only when he disappears will the world be peaceful. When people have great power, they will be isolated. Now Dustless is in this situation, including White Zetsu, who he created, also left him. Hearing this, the last remaining conscience in Dustless's heart disappeared. Human nature is so ugly. I originally wanted to destroy the world government's rule and establish my dream. Now it seems that my previous idea was a little naive. With a strange smile, Dustless suddenly said loudly. Since the creation of the world is not successful, then let's just destroy the world. With the infinite Tsukuyomi, we will end this rotten world. The dawn of dawn will lead all humans into a happy dream. Master Dustless, stop dreaming. My purpose is to pull you down from the altar and replace you as the new king of the world. How can I let you use that technique? Poochie. The white shadow behind him instantly penetrated Dustless's chest and inserted its hand into his heart. Immediately, a mysterious wave of energy surged out. It did not destroy Dustless's body, but unexpectedly gradually merged with it. Yin-yang release, spiritual fusion. His body quickly turned into liquid. White Zetsu's arm had turned into liquid and wanted to merge with Dustless. From the beginning when Master Dustless created me, I understood that it was impossible to kill you. Thanks to the yin-yang release you gave me, I can replace you directly. You intend to occupy my body? How ironic. This scene is similar to Uchiha Madara and Black Zetsu. Looking at the big white hand on his chest, Dustless said with emotion. Immediately, his eyes were cold, and a strange wave of energy directly evaporated the big hand of White Zetsu. How is it possible? Hurriedly pulling out his arm, White Zetsu looked at Dustless in disbelief and said. I have planned all of this for several years. It is impossible to fail. Planning for several years? Idiot. The corner of his mouth was full of ridicule and contempt. Dustless said coldly. The one who created you is me. The one who gave you the Yin-Yang release is also me. Secondly, I am not Uchiha Madara, and you are not Black Setsu. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.